I woke up to a creepy sound. Drip, drip. Something cold and metal was touching my ankle. I looked down. A pretty maid was kneeling by my legs, silver hair everywhere, holding a tiny silver hammer like it was a teddy bear. That's Elia, my maid. The one I made myself in this lord-building game I used to play. Oh right, I'm not playing the game anymore. Am I in the game? I'm Prince Ryan now, second son of the Winter Kingdom, freshly dumped by my dad to go freeze my butt off at some border outpost. Cool. Love that for me. Elia looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. Your Highness, you're awake. A tear dropped on my foot. Nice. Then she said, sweet as candy, your ankle is so beautiful. I'll break it very carefully and heal it with the best magic. Don't worry, you just won't be able to walk. I won't ruin the shape. Excuse me? I suddenly remembered I picked some high-risk choice in the game where I left without waking her up. I just clicked it because I was curious what high-risk meant. I was trying to unlock a CG image, not a murder maid. Apparently, high-risk meant get teleported into the game and unlock secret Yandere mode. Cool game design, 10 out of 10, no notes. She kept crying and rambling about how I tried to abandon her, how the outside world is dangerous, how everyone wants to steal me away from her. Then she said the actual plan: smash my ankle, chain me up with this fancy magic chain, and keep me forever in a cozy basement room she prepared for me. She'd feed me by hand every day, forever, in a basement. Ma'am, that's not romance. That's a kidnapping with extra steps. I tried to kick her off, but the terrified little maid from my memories was gone. What sat on my lap now felt like an ancient monster wearing a cute maid costume. She raised the hammer. I was about to become a guy with one good ankle and zero freedom. Then ding. A robot voice popped into my head out of nowhere. Host detected in Yandere imprisonment crisis. Emotion domination system activated. Make people feel big feelings, get points, buy stuff with points. A red warning screen popped up floating right above Elia's head. Target: Elia. Status: fully Yandere hidden identity. The Witch of Greed, sealed. Current mood: terrified of abandonment, possessive to a scary degree abandonment panic. 99%. Extremely dangerous. Keep Ryan locked in a basement desire. 99% cool. Cool. My maid is secretly a sealed demon, which with a 99% basement kidnapping score. Totally normal Tuesday. Then, new host bonus. You got a free absolute pressure card. Use it to release godlike scary aura for 30 seconds. The hammer came down fast. Use the card, I screamed in my head. The hammer stopped. Less than half an inch from my ankle. Elia's hand was shaking. I just stared at her, dead silent, while the system happily dinged in the background. Emotion points collected, 120. 240. Free points from nearly losing my ankle. Worth it, I guess. The hammer froze midair, less than 2 fingers from my ankle. Not because Elia stopped. Her hand was just shaking too hard to move. I could feel this weird pressure leaking out of me, like some ancient bossy energy that said, do not question me, in every language at once. I didn't even do anything. I just sat there, staring down at her like she was a tiny ant, and I was a grumpy god having a bad day. The warning screen kept updating. Fear, climbing. 38%. 55%. 71%. Intimidation, max. Basement kidnapping desire, dropping fast. Points collected, 120. 240. 430. The hammer slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor. Not on my ankle, on the floor. Big win for me and my skeleton. The whole room went dead silent. Elia knelt there like a wind-up toy that ran out of wind, arms hanging, hair a mess, shoulders shaking. From under all that silver hair came the tiniest, shakiest little voice. Why, Your Highness? And for the first time, no crazy, no creepy sweetness, no basement plans. Just real, raw, little kid fear. The system pinged happily. First, absolute pressure, triggered. Target fully intimidated. 850 points. Timer, 12 seconds left. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. 12 seconds and counting, and I knew exactly what not to do. Comfort her, explain myself, or look soft. In Yandere world, silence isn't awkward. Silence is basically a judge, jury, and executioner combo pack. She started spiraling in her head, gripping her dress so hard her knuckles went white. clearly thinking I was disappointed in her forever. Then she looked up, crazy smile gone, eyes red and wet, full of shock, fear, confusion. And underneath all that, still a creepy little ember of obsession that refused to die. Your Highness, please don't be silent like this. Your silence is like 1,000 tiny swords in my chest. 3, 2, 1. And the power card ran out. The spooky aura zipped back inside me like a vacuum cleaner. Candle flames stopped flickering. Room went back to normal pressure. But I knew this was the real moment. The power card was just a one-time freebie. Now I had to actually handle this myself, while she was cracked open and vulnerable. No going soft. No hugs. No, it's okay. Because the second she learns crying works on me, next time she'll just cry harder and bring a bigger hammer. I'd seen this exact Yander mechanic in the game 100 times. I knew the rules. So I said, calm as a guy ordering coffee, kneel properly in front of me. She obeyed instantly, like a kid who got caught. Take off the chain. She did that too. I patted the spot next to me. Come here. Lie across my lap. A disobedient maid needs to be punished. Dead silence. She stared at me for 3 whole seconds, then burst into tears out of nowhere. You think you didn't do anything wrong? I said. My own maid tried to chain up her prince and lock him in a basement. No. I know I was wrong. She scrambled over and flopped face down across my lap so fast I got a face full of her perfume. I looked at my hand. I looked at the situation. I scrolled through everything I remembered about Elia's character settings in the game. Honestly, kind of didn't want to do this. But for the sake of preventing future Basement Incident 2.0, I had to set some ground rules. You accept this punishment? She gulped. Yes. Please punish me, Your Highness. I gave her but one gentle smack. Went easy on her, didn't want to actually hurt her. We both froze right after. Elia felt the soft little jiggle, like a friendly nudge rather than an actual punishment. Wait, how is this different from a reward? Noob. Elia, in her brain, immediately reached the wrong conclusion. Clearly her master loved her too much to really punish her. And this kind of punishment kind of felt nice, actually. She peeked up, blushing, voice tiny. Your Highness, could you punish Elia 2 more times, please? Excuse me? Okay, she basically just asked for more spankings. I felt personally disrespected. So this time I didn't hold back. Smacked her properly, loud enough my own hand stung. HNN, she went. Wait. Did I overdo it? Elia, I asked worried. I'm here, master. She turned around, cheeks glowing bright red, zero guilt on her face, only pure satisfaction. Then she noticed me looking concerned and instantly switched back to fake pitiful mode. Your Highness, can you punish me a little more? I almost understand my mistake. 2 more and I'll totally get it, promise. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. Hey, how did I miss this red flag during character creation laugh? But then, genius idea incoming. Not everyone deserves my punishment. I only reward good behavior with something nice like that. Earn it. Elia froze completely. Eyes huge, tears still hanging on her lashes, total shock on her face. Huh, take that. Turn the punishment into a reward, and suddenly not punishing her becomes the actual punishment. Galaxy brain move, thank you very much. Sit properly. Long road ahead, I said, looking back out the window at the howling blizzard. Okay, she said, voice still sniffly but calmer. Silence returned. I leaned back, closed my eyes like I was resting, but really I was checking my system panel. 850 emotion points. Not bad. Quick recap of my situation. I'm headed to Blackstone Ridge, basically Death Wasteland Central. Endless snow, monsters everywhere, less than 300 soldiers, barely any supplies, and no commander currently in charge. That's me now, lucky me. Total disaster zone. Also my only inheritance, so guess I'm stuck with it. While I was scheming, Elia spoke up. Your Highness, I opened my eyes. She was still kneeling perfectly, but staring at me unblinking, head tilted. What is the prince thinking about? She paused, then smiled a dangerously confident smile. Elia, we'll stay by master's side forever. I just looked at her and closed my eyes again. Stay by my side. Yeah, noted. Back to the system shop. Winter blood wheat seeds. Ignores cold. Grows in 15 days with a bit of blood or magic. 100 points a bag. 15 days? Too slow. In a wasteland where the rats are starving, 15 days is basically 3 mutinies worth of waiting. Then a glowing gold icon caught my eye. Detected starter privileges. Activate your personal space. The Absolute Dominion Realm Starter Farm. Cost, 500 points. 1 acre of land. Completely yours. Immune to weather. Where crops grow 100x faster and yield is doubled. A personal farming dimension with 100 times speed boost? This isn't a system. This is an actual cheat code from the heavens. Activate. Ding. 500 points gone. Suddenly I was standing in this weird little pocket dimension. Rich black soil. Smells amazing. 1 acre exactly. Perfect size for now. I bought a bag of winter blood wheat seeds for 100 points. Willed them into the dirt, and boom, auto-planted. Honestly, lying down while my farm does all the work? This is the lifestyle. I left the space satisfied. At 100x speed, that 15-day wheat would be ready in under 4 hours. Food security, basically solved. Then the panel flashed a cold red warning. 2 days to Blackstone Ridge. Warning, worst blizzard in a decade incoming. Current food reserves, 29 days. Food shortage will trigger a mutiny, 29 days. All right, 29 days it is. In the original game, this was an unwinnable scenario. Guaranteed mutiny, no way around it. But I'm not that poor sucker grinding through impossible game mechanics anymore. I've got cheats now, baby. The cart rumbled over the frozen ground. I sat there, eyes closed, not actually sleeping, just thinking through my situation. The crown prince back home already locked in his position, and once he's settled, he'll want to clean up loose ends. Meaning me, a living prince with royal blood, is basically a walking liability to him. I don't have much time. Step 1, survive. Step 2, turn this frozen garbage outpost into my actual home base instead of my grave. I opened my eyes. Elia was sitting across from me, hammer and chain already tucked away in her bag, kneeling properly again like a textbook maid. Eyes still a little red, lashes still damp. She thought I was asleep. So she was just staring at me, unguarded, like she was trying to memorize my face forever. I watched her quietly for a moment. She noticed and instantly looked away, ears turning pink. Your Highness is awake? Yeah. I shifted my position, then said, tomorrow we reach Blackstone Ridge. Behave yourself, okay? Pause. I really need you. The cart went quiet. Elliot didn't move, didn't speak, just her eyelashes trembling slightly. Your Highness, she whispered, voice cracking. What did you just say? I said, I really need you. My voice stayed calm, like I was just stating a fact, not flirting. Elia looked up. Her eyes went red again, but this time it wasn't murder hammer red. It was confused puppy red. Your Highness, she said, all croaky. Was that true? When have I ever lied? She went quiet, gripping her dress, but I noticed her shoulders relax for the first time since this whole hammer incident started. Okay, she whispered, barely audible. I closed my eyes again. We sat there in actual peaceful silence, a different kind of silence than before. Just hooves on frozen ground and wind howling through the cracks. Eventually the carriage jerked to a stop. Why, Your Highness? We're here, the driver said, voice shaking with fear, which, cool, very reassuring. I pulled back the curtain and got blasted with freezing wind. There it was, Blackstone Fortress, sitting between two mountains like a rusty old beast that's seen better decades. Walls falling apart, 3 holes patched with random wood scraps like a toothless old grandma's smile. Flag so faded, it's basically a white surrender flag at this point. But the real surprise? The giant iron-covered gate was shut tight. A few dozen skinny, ragged soldiers stood on the wall with crossbows, staring down at us. Not with respect for royalty, just dead-eyed exhaustion and a tiny bit of, "Lol, look at this guy." I stood there in the snow, looking up. Said nothing. Elia stepped out behind me, silver hair blowing in the wind, scanning every face on that wall like she was taking attendance for a future massacre. Then her eyes locked onto one guy slouching against the wall with a smug little smirk, like he was watching a comedy show. Her energy shifted instantly. "Your Highness," she said sweetly, voice like a knife at someone's throat. "The man leaning on the third notch from the left is looking at us in a way I find very unpleasant." "I know," I said, not turning around. Then Elia could. "No," she shut her mouth. But her eyes stayed locked on that soldier's face like she was memorizing it for later. For science. She'd promised to behave today, after all. Then a gruff voice yelled down from the tower. "Who goes there?" A wolf fur-cloaked officer with a face like cold iron leaned over the wall. Our driver scrambled to pull out the royal scroll and waved it like a flag. Show respect. This is Prince Ryan Campbell, your new lord. Open the gates. Oh, the exiled prince, the officer said, smirking at our sad little carriage like it personally offended him. Sorry, your highness. The royal paperwork arrived 10 days ago. It said you're exiled here. Didn't say we have to open the gate, give you a bed, or feed you. The old driver lost it. How dare you? This is the young prince. Do you want him to freeze to death out here? How dare I? The officer pointed back at his starving soldiers. We've got 300 mouths to feed, and the granary's basically rat crumbs. My men drink snow water with a few sad cabbage leaves floating in it every day. This isn't the capital. No fancy bread and roast meat here. One more mouth means one more soldier on the front line starves to death. He leaned over, full disdain. Do everyone a favor. There's a village 10 miles south. Go bother them instead. Don't bring your bad luck into our fortress. And then, a wave of pure murderous frost rolled outward from our carriage like a horror movie effect. Filthy little ants. Elia had lifted her head. All that shy, obedient sweetness she shows me, gone. In its place, something that could freeze a soul solid. She said, ice cold, I'll give you 2 options. Open the gate, or die. Elia. I didn't even raise my voice, but it cut through the storm like a blade. Cannot let her go full murder mode right now. Sure, killing 300 starving soldiers is easy, technically, but that's a hard lock into the bad ending, and unlike in the game, I don't get to hit reload anymore. In the original game, walking into the fortress triggers a chain of disasters. You either die or flee, and even if you escape, the Crown Prince eventually hunts you down anyway. The actual correct path the game wants you on is way simpler than fighting your way in. It's farming. Get strong through farming. And the place where every new player's journey is supposed to begin? Snowfall Village. When she heard my voice, Elia flinched hard, the killing intent draining out of her instantly, replaced by nervous obedience. Why, Your Highness? I didn't look at her. I just looked at that big, stubborn, iron-covered gate. One day, they'll open this gate themselves and beg us to come in. Let's go. Before it gets dark. We need to find shelter before the storm really hits. The wind howled between the mountains. I stood in front of our broken-down carriage, calmly staring past the snow at all those cold, dismissive faces on the wall. Not even mad, honestly. I turned to Elia, who was shaking slightly from holding back all that murder energy, and reached out with my gloved hand to gently pat her silver hair. Your Highness. She felt the warmth on her head, and the storm in her eyes calmed down a little. Like a cat getting scruffed, she lowered her head, obedient, but still growling quietly under her breath, just in case anyone wanted to test her patience again. They think that rusty gate and broken walls can stop the snow, the monsters, and death itself. I lowered my hand, smirking, all calm like I was ordering takeout. Fine. Let those little ants guard their fortress. Let them wait there to die. I turned and walked back to the carriage like a guy who definitely wasn't bothered at all. Behind me, the officer laughed. Yep, exactly like the rumors said, a spineless little prince. Mission complete. Didn't let the second prince in. Someone send word to the crown prince, tell him the good news, and ask for some bonus supplies while we're at it. Every word landed perfectly in Elia's ears. She put it together instantly. My silence, my aunt's comment, I already knew. The real bad guy wasn't this random officer. It was the crown prince back in the capital, pulling strings from 1,000 miles away. Her face went dark. His Highness said you're not even worth dying, she said sweetly, head tilted, hair whipping in the wind, smiling at the soldiers like a nightmare in a maid costume. So be thankful for his mercy. I'll come collect your lives later. Our driver, an old guy named Rigama who used to work for my mom, was fuming the whole ride away. This is outrageous. How dare they treat a prince like this? You're royalty. The king's own blood. This isn't fair at all. Fair? I thought about it. No, actually it is fair. We just don't carry enough weight to matter to them, so they tossed us aside. If I want real fairness, I need to become someone who can't be ignored. Sorry you two got dragged into this with me. I promise, soon, you won't have to suffer like this, Rigama sniffled. The queen, bless her soul, would be so proud of how grown-up you've become. 2 days of riding through the blizzard later, we were all running on fumes. Elia warmed up some bread and porridge with magic and brought it over. You two are hungry too. Let's share. I split the bread 3 ways. Biggest piece to Elia, smallest for myself. Rigama protested. Your Highness, you're still growing. You need the food more than an old man like me. Elia shook her head fast. I run on magic. I barely need food. I just smiled and waved it off. Eat up. Once we hit Snowfall Village, we'll have more food than we know what to do with. Honestly, I'm full already. You take my porridge too, secretly thinking. I have a literal cheat farm dimension. In 4 hours my wheat will be ready, and this whole, starving to death, arc is basically cancelled. Ding. Driver Rigama's gratitude 200. Ding. Elia's love meter 1000. Love this emotion farming system, honestly. More points equals more free food. We trudged through another rough hour of blinding snow, and finally, right before nightfall, a faint shape appeared ahead. Whoa, Your Highness, we've reached Snowfall Village. Old Rigama's hands were practically frostbitten, gripping the reins, relief in his voice, which lasted about 2 seconds before reality smacked him in the face. I stepped out and looked at this so-called dream starting point from the game. It was bad. Worse than bad. Most of the straw huts had collapsed under snow. The few still standing looked like they'd give up any second. Dead silent. Not even a dog bark. So this is the tutorial village. In the game, this place starts with barely any people, super low loyalty, and characters randomly starving to death as a built-in event. Cool. Love that for everyone living here. Your Highness, this place. Elia landed beside me light as a snowflake, scanning the ruins, the frozen bodies, the hollow stares of kids and old people peeking through broken doors. For a second, all that murder energy melted into actual sadness. Turns out when she's not in full Yandere kidnap mode, deep down she's actually just a soft, easily moved girl with way too much empathy. Who knew? They look so sad, she said, tugging my sleeve gently. Your Highness, they'll freeze to death in this cold. Please, let me use healing magic or share our food with them. I looked at her sweet, worried little face. Honestly, I don't mind that she's kind. But out here, in this brutal wasteland, charity with no plan just creates greedy wolves and a bottomless pit of need. What this place needs first is order, not handouts. Not yet, I said simply, then quietly pulled up my system panel. For hours. Perfect timing. Ding. Winter blood wheat in your Dominion realm has matured. Yield, with the 100x boost and double output, 2,000 pounds of wheat. Collect now? 2,000 pounds. Enough to get this entire village through winter. I couldn't help smirking. I basically already won this level. The carriage noise drew attention. The door of the slightly bigger hut in the village center creaked open. An old man, skin and bones, wrapped in ragged sheepskin, shuffled out leaning on his granddaughter. A lord? The old village chief dropped straight into the snow, voice cracked like a broken accordion, eyes full of fear of the unknown. We have nothing left to give. We ate the roots, the bark, everything. Please, Lord, just let us live. Behind him, a tiny girl, maybe 7 or 8, peeked out terrified, lips blue from cold, shaking. Elia's eyes softened looking at the little girl. She moved to step forward to help. I stopped her with one hand. She blinked. Huh, Your Highness? I am Ryan Campbell, second prince of the Winter Kingdom, I said, looking down at the old man, voice steady through the storm. From today, Blackstone Ridge, including this village, is my territory. I am your lord now. The old chief's eyes didn't light up with hope at the word, Lord. If anything, they got more hollow. He closed his eyes in pain. Out here, in this forgotten wasteland, nobles showing up usually means one thing only. Things are about to get worse. The old chief kept bowing, crying. Your Highness, the snows blocked the mountain pass. No food left. We have 3 days, maybe. We truly have nothing to give you. You're wrong about that, I said, eyes narrowing. No speech is needed. I just snapped my fingers in the air. Snap. Crash. My pocket dimension opened and several massive grain sacks just dropped out of thin air onto the snow. The seams burst open and winter blood wheat poured out everywhere. Everyone froze. The old chief's eyes went wide as dinner plates, his whole body shaking like he'd just witnessed a literal miracle. He grabbed a fistful of grain with his shaky old hands and shoved it straight into his mouth. Didn't even chew first. The second that wheat smell hit his tongue, the tears just started flowing. F food. This is real food. God. It's still warm. His scream snapped the entire dead silent village awake. Doors flew open. Villagers stumbled toward the pile of grain like it was the second coming. But nobody dared touch it without permission. My royal aura was apparently doing some heavy lifting here. Your Highness, is all this? For us? So much food. You're so generous, so merciful. Thump. Thump. Dozens of skinny villagers dropped to their knees in the snow, bowing like I was an actual deity. Thank you for giving us life. The prince is a savior sent by the gods. Elia gasped, hand over her mouth, staring at me like I'd just performed actual sorcery. Her admiration meter visibly spiked. My system was going off like a slot machine. Ding. Detected extreme gratitude and fanatic devotion. Emotion points, 50. 100. 200. Faith points, 150. 300. I wasn't even worried about explaining where the grain came from. This world has magic storage rings too, so I could just say I bought cheap wheat in the capital before leaving. Nobody would question it. I walked to the village square, red cloak flapping like I was personally the sun rising over this dump. Honestly, building loyalty in a wasteland like this isn't complicated. You don't need a sharp sword or a fancy speech. You just need to be the only thing standing between them and freezing to death. Eat your fill, I said, voice calm but carrying across the whole crowd. Then pay me back with your sweat, your labor, and your loyalty. Night fell, and for the first time in half a year, Snowfall Village actually felt alive. 3 rusty pots boiled in the square, villagers cooking my wheat with melted snow. No salt, no seasoning, nothing, but the smell alone had everyone drooling like crazy. Every spoonful didn't just warm their bones, it practically healed them on the spot. We're actually going to live? Someone sobbed. I stayed in the carriage, watching through the curtain. Honestly, these people don't feel like game NPCs at all. Too real. Too much actual desperation and relief on their faces. Rigama, who'd skipped his own dinner earlier, snuck over for a bowl of wheat porridge. He'd thought my endless food comment earlier was just me being nice. Turns out I meant it literally. Your Highness, where did all this grain even come from? Elia perked up too, listening closely without asking directly herself. Bought it cheap before leaving the capital, I said casually, lifting my left hand to show off my mom's old storage ring. Blood wheat's considered low quality there. Nobody pays attention to it. Food's not something we need to worry about anymore. But gifts alone don't build an empire. I needed these people to stop being scared little sheep and start being loyal wolves willing to bite for me. That's when things got loud. Heresy. This is blasphemy. Everyone shut your mouths. A sharp, furious voice came screeching from the only stone building in the village, the little church on the east side. Heavy footsteps followed, and out waddled a fat priest in gold-trimmed white robes, flanked by 2 beefy church guards carrying iron-tipped clubs. Unlike the starving villagers, this guy was glowing with health, double chin and all, jewelry-covered fingers gleaming in the firelight. Who gave you permission to eat this filth of unknown origin? He pointed a ring-covered finger at the wheat, eyes flashing with poorly hidden greed. This food reeks of demons. This is witchcraft. The devil's bait to corrupt your souls. The villagers flinched, dropping their bowls out of instinct. In this kingdom, the church sometimes holds more power than the actual crown. And to poor villagers like this, a priest's word is basically gospel. Seeing them cower, the fat priest smirked and glanced toward our beat-up carriage with open contempt. The fortress commander had already tipped him off. Some washed-up, disgraced prince showed up. Out here in Blackstone Ridge, he's basically been running the show like a little tyrant. And those grain sacks? Perfect candidates for confiscation, straight into his personal cellar. Guards, he barked. In the name of the goddess of light, seize this demon-tainted grain. Everyone kneel and repent, or face purification by fire. His 2 guards shoved through the crowd, reaching for the still steaming sacks of wheat. One even raised his boot to kick over the cooking pot. Thunk. Beside the carriage, Elia's eyes went full blood red. Her hand had already drifted to her secret chain hidden under her skirt. How dare they touch the holy gift His Highness gave them? I'm going to pull that fat pig's intestines out and strangle him with them, she whispered, sweet as poison. The temperature around us actually dropped. Don't move, I said, grabbing her wrist before she could launch herself out the window. "Your Highness?" She looked at me, hurt and confused. "Those filthy bugs are insulting your honor. Why won't you let Elia? You could kill them in 1 second," I said, watching the chaos through the window. "But what I need isn't a bunch of cowards who only know how to hide behind me shaking. Watch them, Elia. Watch these people who just ate my food. Let's see if they're willing to fight for their own lives." I stayed in the shadows. Out there, one of the church guards' boots slammed into the cooking pot. Hot porridge splattered into the snow, hissing. The pot didn't tip over, but something else did. The last bit of fear holding these villagers together. "Get away from our food." The scream that ripped through the night didn't come from some strong young guy. It came from the old, half-dead village chief himself. He threw himself at the guard's leg, ignoring the scalding soup on his hands, eyes blood-red like a wolf protecting its cub. "Father, we prayed to the goddess for 3 months. Where was she when we were eating tree bark and roots? My son starved. My daughter-in-law starved. You sat warm in your church eating roasted meat and called our suffering a test. And now, the prince gave us food to live. This is his gift, not the devil's trick. Nobody is taking this away from us. Nobody." Insolence. "Heretic. Servant of the devil," the fat priest screamed, jiggling with rage. "Kill him. Kill this madman possessed by demons." The guard raised his iron club and smashed it down on the old man's head. Blood sprayed everywhere. The chief collapsed, screaming, but even bleeding out, his shaking hands still gripped the grain sacks behind him, eyes locked on his tiny granddaughter. "Grandpa, Grandpa, are you okay?" The little girl sobbed, and that sound cut straight through everyone like a blade. Total silence fell over the village. Then, the villagers who'd been kneeling, trembling, started standing up. All of them. "We are not demons. We are people. We are not demons. We are people." The fear in their eyes was gone. What replaced it was something feral, hunger, oppression, and pure survival instinct all boiling over. "The prince's grain. It's our lives now," one farmer muttered, picking up a rusty hatchet off the ground. "Whoever touches our lives pays with theirs." Dozens of them, men, women, kids, grandmas, grabbed rocks, sticks, soup ladles, anything sharp or heavy, and surrounded the priest and his 2 guards like a pack of wolves waking up after a long winter sleep. What is this? A rebellion? I'm a priest of the church." The farmer raised his hatchet, eyes burning with something past fear now. "We have a lord now. Forget the gods. We are not demons. We are people. Kill these fake bloodsuckers. Defend the prince's gift with your lives. Kill them." Months of starvation and despair exploded all at once. The villagers swarmed forward like a tidal wave, burying the priest and his guards instantly. Clubs hit them, and they didn't even flinch, biting, hacking with farm tools, smashing rocks. Turns out when survival instinct and fanatic loyalty team up, divine authority doesn't mean much. Screams echoed through the storm, quickly drowned out by the villagers' furious roars. I watched from the carriage while my system practically had a meltdown. Ding. Detected territory subjects breaking free of religious control. Congratulations, host. Snowfall Village has been upgraded from obedient subjects to loyal fanatics. Enemy faith collapse bonus, 1,500. Fanatic loyalty bonus, 3,000. Hidden achievement unlocked. The Enlightener. You successfully got your people to point their blades at the church itself. Achievement reward, 5,000 emotion points. "See," I said, finally letting go of Elia's wrist, smiling in a way that probably should have scared me too. "Trust the power of starving people. They're not afraid of poverty or having nothing. What scares them is losing something they finally got to hold, especially food. Whoever starves the villagers will kill." They used to think starving was just fate, something they had to accept. They thought they deserved it. Not anymore. When it's life or death, they don't hesitate. Elia stared at my calculated little side profile while listening to a priest get beaten to death in the background, and honestly, her soul was basically vibrating with admiration. Her master didn't need her protection at all. Her master was already the puppet master, pulling everyone's strings from above. I love this so much. I want him so badly. My master, my master. Show me how much more amazing you can possibly be." 10 minutes later, the village square went quiet again. The priest and his 2 guards were now 3 bloody corpses staining the snow red. The dozens of blood-covered villagers showed zero guilt. Instead, a wild, exhilarated energy, like people who just broke free from chains they'd worn their whole lives. They dropped their weapons and turned, all at once, to face my carriage and dropped to their knees. This time, it wasn't fear-based kneeling. This was true believer, worship an actual God kneeling. I sighed. Your Highness, we've cleared away the trash that defiled your gift, the old chief shouted, blood still running down his forehead as a farmer held him upright. From this day forward, Snowfall Village answers to you and only you. No gods, just your will. I stepped out of the carriage, walked across blood-stained snow, glanced at the dead priest, then looked at my new fanatic little fan club. Remember tonight's blood. Out here, gods can't save you. The church only drains you dry. My voice came out cold and commanding. Only I can give you food, give you life, give you the power to crush your enemies under your boot. I spread my arms like I was officially announcing a new era. Now treat your wounds, eat your fill, clean up this mess. Starting tomorrow, work for me and I'll keep the grain coming. Then I turned my eyes east, toward the only stone building in the whole village, the Church of Light. Elia, old Rigama, we're staying there tonight. The big oak doors creaked open with a heavy push from Rigama. The church wasn't heated, but at least the stone walls actually blocked the wind, so it was quieter than outside. The second we walked in, terrified whimpers echoed from the dark corners. The priest was dead, killed by villagers who, a few hours ago, couldn't even raise their voices at him. A few young nuns and apprentice priests had clearly watched the whole massacre from a window. Seeing me walk in wrapped in a black cloak like some teenage tyrant, they nearly fainted on the spot. Why, Your Highness, a young nun in a thin white robe stepped out from the shadows, shaking. Messy blonde hair, sea-green eyes full of fear and despair. This was Anna, the most senior nun in the church. She stopped 5 steps from me and collapsed straight onto the cold stone floor, the others dropping with her like sheep at the slaughterhouse. Honored Prince, Anna whispered, voice trembling from both fear and hunger. The priest's greed and arrogance have been judged. We did not take part in his crimes. We beg your mercy. Please take over this church, and please grant your humble servants even a small bit of food to live. She pressed her forehead flat to the freezing floor, not daring to lift it an inch. When survival's on the line, divinity and holiness lose every single time to a hot bowl of porridge. I stood under the stained glass windows, watching these once untouchable holy folks grovel with mild amusement. His Highness's gifts are for people who are actually useful, a voice said sweetly beside me, sweet enough to make your bones hurt. Elia had walked up without me noticing, head tilted, silver hair sliding off her shoulder, red eyes glinting with danger. You little bugs who just sit around mumbling at a statue all day, what value do you even bring His Highness? Anna froze, feeling the suffocating murder vibes radiating off this tiny maid. We can read and write. We know basic healing magic, herbal medicine. Anna scrambled forward on her knees, desperate to prove herself useful. We can handle paperwork, clean the church, even attend to His Highness's daily needs. And then, without thinking, she reached toward my snow-dusted cloak like she wanted to brush it off for me. The temperature dropped instantly. Before I could even react, my system started screaming in my head. Ding. Target. Anna attempted to touch the host. Ding. Elia's possessiveness severely provoked. Yanderometer spiking. 10%. Current level. 55%. Back off, I said, voice flat and hard. Anna yanked her hand back like she'd touched fire, falling backward, eyes welling with terrified tears. I looked at her coldly. Don't touch me with hands that were just praying to a cross 5 minutes ago. As for daily needs, Elia's enough. What makes you think you could replace her? To Anna, that sentence landed like a death sentence. She lowered her head, devastated. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Your Highness, but to Elia? Sweetest words she'd ever heard. All that murderous tension drained right out of her. Her red eyes filled with pure joy instead, and she leaned a little closer to me, shooting Anna a look of smug victory. Ding. Elia's Yanderometer dropped, -8%. Affection meter exploding upward. Still, you nuns are at least somewhat useful. I continued. walking over to the priest's big bearskin throne and sitting down, looking down at the kneeling group. I won't kill you, and I'll feed you. But starting tomorrow, this church isn't a place of worship anymore. It's my temporary headquarters. At dawn, anyone who can read writes me up a labor roster for the whole village. And get this building reinforced. I glanced at the system warnings still blinking in my head. Tier 10 blizzard incoming, and my expression hardened slightly. We don't have much time. A real storm is coming soon. If you don't want to freeze into ice statues, drop the prayers and pick up some actual work. Yes, your will be done. Anna bowed frantically, clinging to this lifeline like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Go on. Get your rations from the villagers outside. I waved them off like shooing flies. Once it was just me, Elia, and old Rigama left in the hall. I finally let out a long breath. 2 days of brutal travel plus tonight's chaos had pushed this body to its limit. Elia, I'm here, Your Highness. She knelt obediently by my chair, carefully pulling off my snow-soaked boots. Go check the priest's storage room for blankets, anything warm. We're sleeping here tonight. I looked down at her soft silver hair, voice gentler now. You did well tonight. This is your reward. I reached out and gently ruffled her hair. MMH. She made an extremely pleased, slightly unhinged little sound, nuzzling into my palm like a cat, cheeks flushing pink. Whatever Your Highness commands, Elia will do it. Even if Your Highness wanted Elia to tonight, go make the bed. I cut her off before that sentence could go anywhere dangerous. I watched her skip off happily, then closed my eyes and pulled up the system shop. I had a solid stone church as a base now, a village of fanatically loyal villagers, some freshly surrendered nuns for labor, and over 10,000 emotion points as starting capital. Tomorrow, time to teach everyone how to survive this cursed world's apocalypse weather. System, Tier 10 blizzard, white disaster, incoming. Estimated time remaining, 7 hours 45 minutes. Morning. I opened my eyes to a glowing red countdown burning at the edge of my vision. My right arm was completely numb. I looked over. Elia was clamped onto it like an anxious cat guarding her last meal. Silver hair everywhere, peaceful sleeping face, and a tiny unhinged smile on her lips. Guess the head pat reward really did wonders for her mental stability. I gently slipped my arm free without waking her, threw on my cloak, and headed out. The main hall was already buzzing with activity. Your Highness, the old chief rushed over with a parchment list. This is the labor roster Anna stayed up all night putting together. 58 villagers alive, 20 able-bodied adults, plus the 4 church staff. That's everyone. I scanned the list, neat handwriting, well organized. Guess the nuns were working overtime to prove they're worth keeping around. Across the hall, Anna was handing out the last scraps of yesterday's wheat to villagers heading out to work. Dark circles under her eyes, clearly hadn't slept. The second she caught me looking, she dropped into a respectful curtsy. We're running out of time, I said, ignoring her attempt to impress me, voice cutting through the hall. Everyone froze. By sunset today, a storm cold enough to shatter bone will hit this place. If you don't want to die, get moving. I walked to the center of the hall and traced out a complicated pattern on the stone floor with my scabbard. Adults seal every window with wood and stone, leave only the top vents open. Everyone else, follow this layout and dig half a meter into the floor. Everyone exchanged confused looks. Dig the floor? The old chief hesitated. Your Highness, in past years we just huddled together indoors when it snowed. Past years had snow. Today has a disaster. I cut him off coldly. Any more questions? No? Everyone, listen to His Highness. Dig. The chief shivered and got everyone moving with crude pickaxes and sticks. The whole morning, the church turned into a construction site. By noon, the sky had gone a heavy, depressing gray. No wind, no snow, but the kind of dead-still silence that's scarier than any storm. Clang, clang. Pickaxes hit stone, sparks flying. 20 or 30 villagers dug away at the half-meter trench following my blueprint, but their body heat from last night's meal was already running out fast. Clatter. A young farmer suddenly dropped his pickaxe and collapsed onto the rubble, gasping, sweat freezing on his forehead practically the second it appeared. I can't do this anymore. Chief, this is pointless. His complaint cracked the dam open. Other villagers immediately chimed in. Yeah, there's not even a single snowflake falling out there. What disaster. And this church wall is like 2 meters thick stone, How's wind gonna get through that? We're sweating buckets in this cold. If the chill gets into our bones later, we'll get sick even if we don't starve. Every other year we just hid inside and didn't move. Complaints spread like a plague once that first crack opened. Ding. Villager, Jake, is seriously doubting your decisions, loyalty wavering. Ding. Collective panic and fatigue detected, emotion point gains decreasing. The old chief panicked, raising his cane like he was about to whack the complaining farmer. Shut your mouth. His Highness gave us life. Whatever he says, we do. But this time his authority wasn't landing. A few villagers shrank into the corners, tools dangling uselessly in their hands. Right as I was about to step in, you bunch of stupid, short-sighted fools, a sharp, surprisingly stern voice rang out from the other end of the trench. Everyone turned. It was Anna, kneeling on the cold stone, scraping rubble out of the trench with her bare hands. Hands that used to only flip through holy texts, now covered in blisters and dirt. Her face was pale from exhaustion, but her blue eyes burned with desperate determination. You have no idea what His Highness is actually saving you from. She stood up, pointing a shaking finger at the stained glass windows. Look at that sky. That's a white disaster. I've read about it in church texts. When this kind of weather hits, it's not snow that comes. It's death wind that freezes blood solid in your veins. His Highness gave you food, and now he's spending his own precious magic materials to build you a shelter. And you're seriously questioning the one person actually trying to save your lives? She wasn't performing. She was genuinely terrified. She's educated. She could actually feel how dangerous that sky looked. If these lazy farmers stalled the magic circle and it failed to finish in time, everyone dies. Her included. So she had to cling to this cold prince's leg for dear life. Even if that meant scolding a mob who'd literally murdered a priest 12 hours ago. The villagers, stunned that their usually soft-spoken nun just yelled at them, quietly went back to digging. Up on the platform, I watched Anna fight to defend my authority with a flicker of genuine respect. Smart girl. Way more useful than these short-term thinking villagers. I nodded. Anna, take your people, clear this section. Getting personally singled out by me hit her like a religious experience. She bowed deep, practically glowing. Yes, Your Highness. Anna will not disappoint you. But just as she lifted her head, beaming with pride at finally proving her worth, she felt it. A pure, abyssal cold malice locked directly onto her throat. She turned, stiff as a board. Standing beside me, my silver-haired maid, usually quiet as a porcelain doll, was staring at her with the exact expression you'd give a corpse. The last stone slab popped loose, and the trench was finally complete. Your Highness, everything's dug according to the blueprint, the old chief reported, practically vibrating with excitement. The instant he finished talking, system, white disaster has arrived. A scream like it came straight from hell slammed into the church's heavy oak doors. Every bit of light got swallowed instantly. Boom. The doors shook violently, and the hall went pitch black. Not nighttime, dark, but the storm is so thick light physically cannot pass through. Dark. Crackle. Crackle. Ice started forming in the darkness. Even through 2 meters of solid stone wall, the brutal cold seeped in like it didn't care about physics. Within seconds, all the body heat from a whole day of digging just vanished. Breath froze into ice crystals midair and stung people's faces like razors. We're done for. The fireplace alone won't save us. We'll freeze to death. It's dropping too fast, through a tiny unsealed vent up high. The chief caught a flash of the outside world by lightning snow glow and went pale. The world outside had lost all shape. Fist-sized ice shards screamed across the wasteland faster than arrows, and the village they'd spent decades building got shredded into confetti and yanked into the sky in seconds. It's gone. The whole village is gone. The old chief's legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the stone floor. If they hadn't listened to me, if they'd stayed home like every other year, being smart, there wouldn't be a single survivor left right now. Just shredded bodies in the wind. All that earlier complaining and exhaustion instantly turned into cold sweat and pure terror. But fear didn't stop there. So cold. We're going to freeze anyway, one young farmer stammered, teeth chattering by the trench. This weather, stone walls or not, we're not lasting long. Anna hugged a few young apprentices close, shaking. She looked desperately toward the altar. No, this prince had clearly planned ahead for everything else. Surely he had a plan for this too. She had to believe that. So she started chanting a hymn and cast the church's basic spell, Sunlight Blessing. Usually just a calming light spell, but right now, every tiny bit of warmth helped. "Keep quiet, everyone." The old chief tried weakly to keep order. "Everyone shut up," I said instead, voice cutting calmly through the chaos. No panic in me at all. In my head, I gave the order, system. Exchange for basic geothermal magic core. Ding. 1,000 emotion points deducted. Exchange successful. Current balance, 11,200. A crystal appeared in my gloved palm, dark red, glowing like it had molten lava trapped inside. The only light source in the entire pitch-black hall. Under everyone's terrified stares, I walked calmly to the center of the hall and pressed it straight into the trench core we dug all day. A low hum, like the earth itself groaning, rolled through the hall. Then, the magic kicked in. Red light shot through every channel in the floor, racing under the entire church. All those trenches everyone complained about digging all day, they became veins carrying heat throughout the building. 3 seconds. That's all it took. The hall, which had just dropped below -30, started climbing. 0, 10, 15, settling at a cozy 20 degrees, spring weather indoors while hell raged outside. Red light pushed back the darkness. Heat pushed back the cold. Everyone who thought they were about to die stood frozen, reaching out frostbitten hands to feel the warmth rising from the floor like they were being hugged by a god. "It's warm. It's actually warm." The old chief touched the heated stone, sobbing, then turned and slammed his forehead into the floor toward me. Your Highness saved every single one of us. All the doubt, all the exhaustion from earlier, gone, replaced by pure, post-near-death fanatic awe. Ding. Subjects are extremely shaken by your foresight. Awe and faith skyrocketing. Emotion points pouring in, 1,500, 2,500, 4,000. Anna sat on the warm stone floor, staring up at me, lit red by the magic glow, looking like a god descending from heaven. Outside the doors, a frozen apocalypse tearing everything apart. Inside, a warm paradise I'd built with my own hands. She crawled forward on her knees, hands clasped to her chest like a prayer, pressing her forehead to the steps at my feet. The other priests and nuns followed, all dropping into a full bow. "We pledge our lives to our Lord." 60-some people crammed into one warm church on the worst night of their lives, all bowing in unison, screaming louder than the storm itself. Ding. All subjects' loyalty broke threshold, locked permanently as devoted, will never betray. Current point balance, 16,700. I let out a breath. Survived round 1 of this nightmare opening sequence. I leaned back into the priest's old high-back chair, smirking with satisfaction. Elia gathered her maid's skirt and came over, kneeling obediently at my feet, massaging my calves. "Master, how did you know the storm was coming? Master, are you sure you're still just my master and not something even more? Master, you." I reached out and patted her silver hair, exactly the way you'd reward a loyal dog, instantly de-escalating Yandra meltdown mode before it could even start. "What are you even thinking? I've been your master from start to finish." Not a lie, by the way. I'm playing this game. My character is literally named after me, and Elia is the maid I personally designed myself. Sure, the AI took some creative liberties and made her a hammer-wielding murder maid, but technically, yeah, I'm hers, start to finish. I looked past the crowd of cheering villagers, out the window at the white wasteland still raging. That much snow, I thought, smirking a little. Wonder how many of those soldiers who slammed the fortress gate on us are still breathing tonight. Morning came. The old chief and a few strong villagers shoved the heavy oak doors open. The wind had stopped. That crushing pressure in the air was gone. But when everyone stepped out onto the stone steps to look around, total silence. Dead silence. The village was gone. Completely erased. Nothing but blinding white in every direction. Last night's white disaster had flattened everything within miles, burying every hut, every dead tree, even the old road marker under meters of solid ice. The villagers just stood there, hollow-eyed. "Your Highness, we have nothing left." The old chief's knees gave out, only saved from falling by a nearby farmer grabbing him. "Goddess," Anna whispered, hand over her mouth, eyes wide with the realization of how close they'd come to dying. If they hadn't taken shelter, if I hadn't forced them to reinforce the church, they'd be exactly like everything else out there, buried meat under a few dozen feet of ice. I see the village is gone too, I said, stepping forward in my boots, black cloak catching the morning sun, casting a long shadow. Nature doesn't go easy on you just because you're poor or weak. The old snowfall village is buried. Gone. Heads dropped. No home. No future. What now? Then I turned and pointed back at the church. Gasps all around. Why is there no snow here? There's not even a speck within 5 meters of the church. Your Highness, how? My eyes lit up. Exactly. This is your achievement. You dug that magic circle in one day, and now it's pumping out heat non-stop, keeping the cold out indefinitely. Steam rose from the snowline where it touched the warm zone, melting instantly into water running down the drainage channels. In the middle of -40-degree apocalypse hell, this patch of ground was warm, damp, practically springtime. A real miracle oasis in the middle of a death field. It's a miracle, Your Highness. You are the miracle. All their grief over the lost village melted into pure religious devotion, staring at me like I was the deity they'd always secretly hoped existed. You gave us food. You saved us from the disaster. You must be a messiah? You're here to save us, aren't you? No, I said, with a tired little laugh. Nobody's here to save you. Not even gods can do that. Then, who can? The crowd deflated instantly, like their whole spiritual support system just got yanked away. Some literally dropped flat on the ground bowing. You gave us food. You predicted the disaster. You're our savior. We'll be devoted forever. We will follow you forever. Others joined in, sobbing, begging me not to abandon my faithful flock. Honestly, even with my system going nuts farming emotion points off all this, I didn't feel that great about it. Apparently being treated like a literal god isn't as fun as I expected. Guess my usual brand of charm doesn't really translate to Bronze Age apocalypse cult leader energy. Might take some time, for them, and for me. The old village is destroyed. But you're all still alive, I said, looking at 60-some pairs of eyes slowly refilling with hope, voice firm with actual leadership energy this time. Tears don't buy grain out here. Starting today, this isn't Snowfall Village anymore. This is our new home, New Snowfall Town. I, Ryan Campbell, your lord, make this promise. Stay loyal, work with your own 2 hands, and this territory will always have hot food and shelter for you. No matter how bad the storm gets, I'll stand between you and it. No threats. No empty promises dressed up pretty. Just the simplest, most honest deal you can offer. And in a world where tomorrow isn't guaranteed, a lord who actually feeds and protects you is basically worth your whole life. We pledge our lives. To you, Your Highness. We will follow our lord to the death. The old chief dropped to one knee first, and everyone else followed, villagers and nuns alike, bowing with real gratitude this time. Ding. Subjects feel intense protection and renewed hope. Loyalty surging. Emotion points, 1,500. I nodded, satisfied. This is what a healthy feedback loop looks like. Get up. The new home isn't going to build itself. Time to start delegating. Old John, take the elderly and the women. Start mixing mud and rubble around the church perimeter. First wind wall. We're enclosing this warm zone. Yes, sir. The old chief looked genuinely fired up now. Sister Anna. Yes, Your Highness. She stepped forward respectfully. You can read. You're good with numbers, and the villagers trust you. I'm naming you Chief Steward of New Snowfall Town. Anna blinked, panicked. Your Highness. Problem? She shrank back instantly. As you command. Your Highness. I gave Anna her first task. I need you to count what's left of the wheat and organize daily food rations. Anna's eyes went a little wet. She genuinely expected to be punished for working under the dead priest, not handed real responsibility. Anna swears on her life. I won't disappoint you. Your Highness. She bowed deep and hurried off with the apprentices to the storage room. Meanwhile, I felt the temperature drop behind me. Not the storm kind. The other kind. I turned. Elia was staring daggers at Anna's retreating back, then at me. Those red eyes were swimming with something dark and drowning. Her fingers, hidden under her skirt, were white-knuckled around something that was definitely making a chain-clinking sound. Ding. Elia experiencing severe possessiveness crisis. Yandere jealousy detected. Meter spiking, 15%. Currently at 62%. Yep, she's definitely planning a murder right now. Elia, I said flatly once we were back in the church. Are you even listening? I swear I will never disappoint His Highness's kindness, she said, mimicking Anna's voice in a sing-song mocking tone, eyes a little red, ice in her voice. I have no say in who His Highness likes, but if you like girls like her, then I'll just, clink, clank, hammer and chain rattling under her skirt. Have to kill her. The villagers carrying rubble nearby couldn't hear what she was saying, but instinct told them to walk far, far away from this maid right now. I didn't back off. Instead, I stepped closer, took off my glove, grabbed a pen from the priest's old desk, took her hand, and sat down, pulling her right into my lap. She shivered, tried to pull her hand back, failed, and ended up sitting there blushing instead. Don't think this fixes anything. I'm not that easy to please. Who said I'm trying to please you? I'm doing this for me, I said casually, sketching out plans on paper. I need to plan the rebuilding. If you're not sitting on me, I literally have no energy, Why Your Highness said. What? Don't move. I sketched a circle around the church, the heating field's radius. Even in the original game, the main quest right after surviving the White Disaster was upgrading the geothermal core to expand the territory. But with my system, I could skip the grind entirely. While petting my lap maid like a cat, I thought it through. A tier 2 core would push the heated radius out to 500 meters, plenty for a small town. And the shop sells the ultimate medieval cheat item, cement. Construction speed about to go full turbo. Meanwhile, Elia's brain had completely short-circuited. Master said, he needs me near him for energy. So obviously, I'm the only person Master truly needs. What's that accountant lady even matter? Ding. Elia's satisfaction maxed out. Yandere meter crashing, minus 20%. Congratulations, host, harvested elite Yandere affection. 2,000 points. Beautiful. With that plus everything from the loyalty oaths and surviving the storm, my balance hit a very nice 18,200 points. System. Pull up Tier 2 geothermal core and industrial quickset cement. Tier 2 core, 5,000 points. Radius expands to 500 meters, stable temp 25 degrees. Quickset anti-freeze cement, 10-ton batch 1,000 points each, by the Tier 2 core. And 30 tons of cement, 8,000 points gone. A bigger, redder, even hotter crystal appeared in my hand. Elia, come with me to the core. She got up obediently like a perfectly behaved cat. Zero trace of murder mode from 2 minutes ago. I walked to the center of the church and swapped out the old core without hesitation. A deeper, more powerful hum rumbled underground. A visible wave of dark red heat exploded outward from the church like a tsunami. The tiny warm bubble that used to cover a few meters expanded insanely fast. 100 meters. 300, 500. Thick ice and snow turned to mist and running water the instant the heat wave hit it. Within minutes, a massive circle of black, thawed earth, 500 meters across, had been carved straight out of the frozen apocalypse. A miracle. This is an actual miracle. Anna and the chief, just walking out of storage, watched the warm zone explode outward, too stunned to speak properly. Stop staring, I said, stepping outside, and waved my hand. Thud, thud, thud. Dozens of huge sacks of gray powder appeared and dropped into the mud. What is this? The chief asked, pinching some between his fingers. Flour? Wrong color though, no wheat smell. Cement, I explained simply. Mix it with water, sand, and gravel. In half a day it hardens stronger than Blackstone Fortress's walls. With this, we skip months of hand-chiseling stone. In a medieval fantasy world, industrial age cement is basically more powerful than half the magic here. Anna and the chief's eyes lit up. This is amazing. With this gift, we could build stone houses and walls in just days, the chief said, rubbing his hands excitedly. But I cut his excitement short. Cement's just the flesh. We need bones too. Lots of gravel, or scraps, plus fine river sand for filler. Sure, I could buy raw sand and rock straight from the system shop, but the exchange rate on plain natural resources is brutal. Wasting precious emotion points on dirt and rocks felt criminal. Points need to go where they actually matter. The old village is buried in mud and ice now. Does anyone know where there's a big quarry or a dried-up riverbed nearby? Silence. Nobody travels in blizzard season just to scout for rocks. Then a sturdy man with a limping left leg shuffled out from the crowd. "Why, Your Highness?" "I know." He knelt and gave a slightly awkward salute. "Name's Hans. Former hunter around Blackstone Ridge. Used to work the noble's quarry too. I know exactly where what you need is." He pointed west, voice rough. "About 10 miles that way, there's an old abandoned quarry called Black Pine Valley. Pre-cut gravel piles still sitting there, and a frozen shallow river at the bottom. Crack the ice, and there's perfect river sand underneath. 10 miles. Back in my old world, that's a 30-minute drive. Out here, post-apocalypse blizzard knee to thigh deep snow? That's basically a death march. But it's a necessary one if I want to actually build something real." "Good," I nodded. I looked over the able-bodied farmers who'd been digging trenches yesterday. Loyal, sure, but half-starved and weak. Hauling heavy rock and sand through snow on their current condition wasn't happening. I opened the system again, spent 2,000 points on 20 bottles of Arctic Endurance Elixir. A quick burst stamina booster for short, intense exertion. "Chief, pick out the strongest men in the village, and pull out every weapon we have. Old Rigama, while I'm gone, keep an eye on the construction. Don't let it stop." The old driver spoke up. "Your Highness, are you sure you don't need me along? I can still drive a cart. Might be useful." "No need," I said. "I'm just scouting the route. No cart required." "You've earned a rest, old man." "As you wish, my prince." The chief wasted no time picking 20 strong-framed men, Hans included, who lined up nervously by the supply crates. "Your Highness, these are our strongest." Weapons distributed. "Good." I set the crate of glowing green potions down in the snow, voice carrying full commander energy now. "Our town needs rebuilding. I'll personally lead the way and find what we need to build it." I kicked open the crate lid. 20 little glass bottles of pale green. Goose stared back. "Drink up," I ordered. "The cold out there will freeze your blood solid. This stuff will make your insides burn like a furnace so you can take it." Nobody hesitated. To them, my word was basically scripture. 20 hands grabbed 20 bottles, 20 heads tilted back. The second it hit their stomachs, it was like swallowing fire whiskey straight up. "WHOO." Hans exhaled a huge cloud of white breath. He felt his blood pumping, his stiff, half-frozen muscles suddenly bursting with energy. His bad leg was still bad. Old trap injury, never going to fully fix that. But he felt like he could sprint 10 miles carrying a wild boar and not even break a sweat. Everyone stripped the doors and bed frames, lashed them into 5 wide sleds with rope. Grabbed pickaxes, shovels, sacks. I didn't give them time to enjoy the buzz, just kept firing off orders. Half an hour later, 5 rough wooden sleds sat ready at the edge of the warm zone. "Hans, lead the way. Move." The second we left the warm zone, the real test started. Even with clear skies, the temperature was still nearly -40 out here. Blinding white light and bone-cutting wind, like invisible knives everywhere. Snow up to the thigh. Every single step meant yanking your leg out of a snow hole and slamming it back down. Single file. Lead person breaks trail. Everyone else steps in their footprints. Swap leader every half-hourglass. I barked orders. Against nature like this, humans are basically nothing. Without the stamina potions, without smart rotation, these guys wouldn't have made it 2 miles before collapsing. Hans, limping, gritted his teeth and broke trail at the front the whole way, no complaints. He knew every step he took out here was a brick toward rebuilding his home, and the Lord himself was right there in the storm with them. 2.5 brutal hours later, the group crested a snowy slope and Hans finally stopped, panting, pointing ahead. "Your Highness, we're here. That valley up ahead, that's Black Pine Valley, a narrow gorge squeezed between 2 steep snow mountains. On the left, clear signs of old mining. Huge piles of gravel frozen solid under thick ice. At the bottom, a 10-meter-wide riverbed had turned into a flat glacier. 10-minute break. Then work. We got down into the gorge where the mountains blocked most of the wind. The militia spread out and attacked the frozen rock piles with pickaxes. Clang, clang. Pickaxes hit half a meter of solid ice, sparks flying, leaving barely a dent. Hands started bleeding from the impact. "It's frozen way too hard," Hans said, staring at the ice without even a crack in it. "Your Highness, at this rate, we won't fill even one sled by tomorrow. You don't need to break it," I said calmly, glancing at the silver-haired maid beside me. "Elia, I'm here, Your Highness." She stepped forward smiling. Eyes glinting with violence, she was clearly excited to unleash. With one hand she caught the hammer that, accidentally, slipped from her skirt. The chain whipped through the air, and the hammer smashed down on the ice like a meteor. Boom. A massive explosion echoed through the valley, ice shards flying everywhere. Ice that pickaxes couldn't even scratch shattered into a giant spiderweb crack, exposing high-quality gray gravel underneath. Holy crap, this girl's a monster. Well, duh, she's the Lord's personal maid. What did you expect? Stop staring, get the gravel loaded onto the sleds. Let's go. The militia got to work loading sacks of rock onto the first sled, but once it was loaded with several dozen heavy sacks, nearly 2 tons, a new, more lethal problem showed up. Heave, pull. For men strained against the rope, faces purple, the sled's wide base just sinking deeper into the snow with every pull. It wouldn't budge an inch. It's not working, Your Highness. Too heavy, too much snow. It's stuck solid. We don't have enough manpower. There's elevation changes too. This is impossible. The whole crew started spiraling into despair. They'd made it all the way out here, had all the material they needed right in front of them, and couldn't move a single cartload. Basic physics just shut down their entire building plan. Can't move it, huh? Then let's make the snow do the moving for us, I said, not angry at all, actually grinning a little. Hans, yes, take 10 men, pack down the trail we already walked. Stomp it flat with feet and boards. As hard and solid as possible. Everyone else, crack open that frozen river and haul up buckets of water. The men looked confused. Why fetch water in -30 weather? But did it anyway out of pure trust. Elia smashed the river ice open easily, freezing cold water bubbling up. Your Highness, water's ready. Packed trail's ready too, Hans reported, shivering. Pour the water down that packed trail, I said, pointing toward the path back to the village. Splash. 2 big buckets of icy river water hit the snow. What happened next made every villager's jaw drop. In -30 cold, that water didn't even have time to flow properly. Within seconds, steam rose off the surface and it froze solid into smooth, glassy ice, turning that soft, sled-swallowing snow path into a literal ice track. See that? I kicked the new ice surface. Snow has too much friction. But ice? Nature gave us the cold. Let's use it to build an actual ice highway, get the sled onto the track. Try again. Hans and 3 others, doubtful, levered the sled onto the new ice path and pulled again. Shhhhhgay, the 2-ton sled, completely stuck moments ago, glided forward like it weighed nothing. Took a bit of effort to get moving, but once it did, it practically jogged along. It's moving. It's actually moving. Holy hell, the Lord's smarter than magic itself. Hans forgot about his limp entirely and started laughing, face flushed with excitement. The whole defeated crew erupted into cheers. Just basic ice physics, and I'd casually solved the deadliest transport problem in this entire frozen wasteland. Don't celebrate yet. We've still got to lay ice track and haul rock at the same time. It's still a lot of work. But once it's built, we reuse it forever. I cut the cheering short. Back to it. Water, track, load. Go. Yes, my lord. Morale was sky high now. People split into roles, mining, pouring water, loading sleds. The whole valley buzzed with activity. Then, right as the second sled was almost full, Hans, who'd been keeping watch at the edge of the gorge, suddenly froze. Like a wolf catching a scent, ears practically twitching, eyes locked on an old abandoned mine shaft halfway up the mountainside. Pitch black inside, thick icicles hanging from the entrance. Your Highness, Hans gripped his spear tighter, backing toward me slowly, voice unusually tense. Something's moving in there. I stopped giving orders, eyebrow raised. Crunch, crunch. Faint footsteps on gravel echoed from deep inside the dark tunnel, followed by a quiet, terrified gulp. Get ready to fight, I said flatly, not even drawing my sword. 20 militiamen dropped their buckets and shovels instantly, grabbing spears and clubs, forming a tense line in front of me. Everyone watched as a skeletal man wrapped in rotted burlap sacks staggered out of the shadows. Lips blue from cold, gripping a rusty iron dagger, but his eyes were locked, desperately, on the steaming food buckets on our sled. Behind him, more eyes lit up in the darkness of the mine. Hollow, starving, desperate eyes. Food, my God. Is that actual food? There wasn't just one set of eyes in that mine. More than one. I didn't say anything yet, just counted shapes emerging from the darkness. Rotted animal hides, fingers turned purple from frostbite gripping random objects, a shovel handle, a broken spear, chunks of rock. Every face the same color, gray, swollen, like fish that had been frozen too long. Men, women, old folks, kids too. Roughly 30-something people total. The guy in front was big, holding a rusty pickaxe, one arm half raised in front like he was both shielding and warning us. Lips blue, but eyes still sharp. They locked onto our food buckets for 1 second, then forced themselves back to my face. System, target group detected, mind survivors X31. Stamina, critically weak. Hunger, near death. Emotions, despair 89%, fear 74%, survival drive. Max, tags, blizzard refugees, laid-off quarry workers, neighboring village refugees. My eyes lingered for a beat on quarry workers. Before I could speak, the air beside me dropped a few degrees. Elia had silently stepped half a pace ahead of me, scanning the cave entrance with cold eyes, chain clinking faintly under her skirt. Her voice came out soft, casual, like commenting on the weather. Your Highness, some of them are carrying metal. Translation, they're a threat. 20 militiamen instinctively tightened their grip, spear tips swinging toward the cave. The lead man's eyes flashed something desperate, took half a step back, but couldn't retreat further. His people were behind him, everyone he'd brought out here with him. Elia, I said quietly, stand down. She didn't move, just turned her head and looked at me with this impossibly soft expression. Your Highness, they have weapons. I know. I just repeated those 2 words, flat, no extra emotion, but somehow it landed with the weight of 2 iron blocks slamming together. Her eyelashes fluttered once. Then she slowly stepped back beside me. The chain went silent. I walked forward, straight toward the mine. Your Highness, Hans panicked, tried to grab me. I waved him off. I kept walking until I stopped about 3 steps from the guy with the pickaxe. Close enough to see the bloodshot whites of his eyes, close enough to hear the involuntary hollow rumbling in his throat from starvation. I glanced down at his pickaxe, then turned to Hans. Bring the food buckets from the sled. Get the iron frame and fire starter, Your Highness, right here. Set up a stove. Cook porridge. Total silence in the gorge. Militia exchanged confused glances. The mine survivors just stared, frozen, at this random teenager casually announcing he was about to cook for them. They literally forgot they were holding weapons. Hans hesitated 3 seconds, then went to grab the bucket. I pulled a sack of weed out of my pocket dimension and tossed it to the nearest militiaman. Melt snow, get water, set up the pot. Then I walked over to a rock ledge and sat down, like I was waiting for something I already knew would happen. Nobody noticed when I passed the guy holding the pickaxe. I said one quiet line only he could hear. Put it down. Your arm can't hold that much longer. He froze for half a second. The pickaxe lowered silently to the ground. Once the fire got going, the wind in the gorge seemed to calm a little. The pot sat on the rocks, snow melted into water, wheat dumped in without any seasoning. Just that little bit of steam and warmth spreading through the freezing gorge was enough to make grown men's eyes sting. The mine people didn't scatter, they stood at the entrance like animals unsure if the trap was really gone, eyes locked on the pot with that numb, desperate hunger you only see in people pushed past their limit. I didn't rush them, just leaned against the rock, watching the porridge boil. Hans, yes? Any kids in there? He glanced into the mine, went quiet for a second. 3. One of them. Doesn't look good. I stood, walked to the pot, scooped a full steaming bowl, and walked straight into the mine. This time nobody stopped me. The leader just stepped aside, expressionless. Darker inside, light cutting in sideways from the entrance, lighting up dozens of huddled shapes in the corner. Deeper in, an old gray-haired woman had 3 kids pulled against her body, shielding them with her own warmth. 2 of the kids still had their eyes open, unfocused. The smallest one wasn't moving at all, just the faintest rise and fall of its tiny chest. I crouched in front of the old woman and set the bowl beside her. Start with the smallest one. Small sips. Don't rush. She looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much despair to believe in anything anymore. No gratitude, no suspicion, just emptiness, completely hollowed out. I didn't explain myself, just stood and walked back to the pot. Start serving, I told Hans. Mind people first. Our group waits for the second batch. Your Highness, Hans whispered. They just had weapons pointed at. Doesn't matter. I grabbed my own bowl, sat on a rock, took a slow sip. Not too hot. Just right. The smell of porridge drifted through the gorge. A few minutes later, from deep in the mine, came the faint sound of a child swallowing. Then the old woman's quiet, broken crying. The mine people started moving, not rushing, not fighting over it. One by one, slowly, they came out and formed a crooked, silent line by the pot. Took their bowls without a word, crouched in the snow, heads down, sipping quietly. The leader was last out. He stabbed his pickaxe into the snow, stood in front of me for a long moment without saying anything. Then finally took the bowl Hans handed him and crouched down beside me. When he finished, he set the bowl down and spoke, voice rough like he hadn't used it in days. Name's Gray. Used to work this quarry, mining for some noble out east. He paused. Right before the disaster hit, the owner said he didn't need us anymore. Said there wasn't enough work to feed us all. Kicked us out, had nowhere else to go, figured I'd hide out here. Picked up anyone else I found along the way. His fingers tightened slightly. We've been here 31 days. I pulled my gaze back from the distance, looked at him calmly. How many of you can still work? Gray blinked, not expecting that to be my first question. He looked around. Maybe 20 can actually work right now. The old folks and kids might bounce back in a few days. He paused. We've got a blacksmith. 2 former cart drivers from the mine days. An old man who used to do carpentry. I just listened, eyes drifting toward the snowy mountains, voice as flat as a weather report. Gray. I'm Ryan Campbell, Lord of Blackstone Ridge. My territory's rebuilding, and I'm short on people. All kinds of people. I paused. So, you're 31. Do you want to die out here, or come with me? Dead silence in the gorge. Gray set his bowl down and looked up, staring into my eyes for a long moment. Searching for something. Pity, looking down on him, some kind of scheme, a price tag attached. He found none of it. Just calm eyes, waiting for an answer he already knew I'd get. He stood, dropped to one knee on the frozen ground. My lord. Behind him, one by one. The rest followed. Knees hitting snow with quiet thuds, some heads bowed shaking with silent sobs, others just lowering their heads without a sound. Ding. Maximum shock and total submission detected. All 31 Blizzard refugees pledged loyalty. Emotion points, 5,500. Achievement unlocked. 1 blacksmith, 2 cart drivers, 1 carpenter, 16 miners. Initial skilled labor force assembled. I looked at the kneeling crowd, voice calm. Second batch of porridge is ready. Have another bowl. I stood, brushed snow off my knees. When you're done, help us haul rock. We've got an ice track laid. It's not too bad. Gray, you know this gorge best. Guide us to building materials. Gray looked up, frozen for a second. Then his face shifted into something hard to name. Not gratitude, not joy, something heavier, like finally feeling solid ground after floating for too long. Yes, my lord. The whole time, Elia had stood exactly 3 steps from me, completely silent. She'd just watched, me carrying the bowl, walking into the mine, crouching beside Gray, helping people up. Her expression was hard to read. No possessive heat in her eyes for once. Just something deeper, something quietly taking root for the first time. Once I walked back to her, she finally spoke, voice nearly swallowed by the wind. You didn't let me act, not an accusation. Not pouting either. Just stating a fact, like confirming something to herself. Yeah, I said, not looking at her, eyes on Gray organizing the group. A good blade shouldn't be drawn for nothing. She went quiet for a beat. Your Highness, she tried again, something faintly trembling in her voice. That man with the pickaxe. He was less than 2 steps from you in there. I know, if he'd suddenly. He wouldn't. I finally turned and looked at her calmly. A man who survived 31 days starving and still kept 30 other people alive isn't the type to do something stupid. She stared at my profile for a long while. Whatever she'd been about to say, she swallowed it back down, lowering her head, silver hair falling forward to hide her expression. Okay, she said, barely audible. 2 hours later, 5 sleds loaded with rock and river sand slid smoothly along the frozen ice track toward New Snowfall Town. Gray walked at the front of his people, rope cutting into his shoulder, 1 step at a time. The old woman carried the smallest child, bundled in furs, trailing behind the group. The kid's eyes had finally come back into focus, staring up at the gray sky where a thin sliver of light cut through the clouds. When the group reached town, warmth hit them before they even crossed the border. Heat radiating off that black, thawed ground, a visible line separating it from the dead -30 silence outside. Gray, walking point, stopped right at that line. Everyone behind him stopped too, one by one, all hovering at the edge between cold and warm. Nobody stepped in first, not out of fear, just not wanting to rush something this big. Gray stood there, staring at this impossible warm patch of earth in the middle of a frozen apocalypse. Smoke rising from chimneys, Anna directing villagers around a half-built wall, old John gesturing at something on the ground, kids running around in the mud. His throat moved. "Let's go," I said, walking past him, voice flat. "Standing here, you'll freeze." Gray snapped out of it, lowered his head, and crossed the line. The moment his boot hit warm mud, someone behind him let out a quiet, choked sob, instantly swallowed by the wind. Nobody looked back. They just all walked a little faster, rope tied on their shoulders, dragging 5 heavy sleds of rock into a place that had no business existing in this dead wasteland. Old John spotted them first. He looked up, saw the sleds, saw the rock and sand piled high, then saw the 30-plus unfamiliar faces trailing behind. He froze for a second, yelled something to the person next to him, dropped what he was doing, and limped over. "Your Highness, who are these new arrivals?" I cut him off, handing my rope to a nearby militiaman. "Go get Anna. Have her sort out housing and rations for this group. Let them rest tonight." "Yes." Old John turned to go, then I stopped him. "Wait." I pointed at Gray. "Put him with you. Whatever you're doing for the rest of the day, he does too. Get him familiar with the place." Old John blinked, glanced at Gray. Gray glanced back. The 2 middle-aged men sized each other up silently for half a second. "Sure thing." Old John nodded, jerked his chin at Gray. "Come on." Gray didn't say anything, just followed. A couple steps in, he glanced back at me. I'd already turned away, crouched by the unloaded rock pile, grabbing a handful, rubbing it between my fingers, checking the material quality. Same exact expression as when I'd been ladling porridge. Focused, calm, like it was just another small, ordinary task. Gray looked away and caught up with old John. Anna came running, ledger flapping in her hand, hair half undone. She caught her breath, scanned the new refugees, and her brain visibly started crunching numbers. 31 people, she muttered. Current wheat stock, plus today's harvest, 2 meals a day at 60% portions. 5 seconds of math. "It's enough, Your Highness. Food's fine. But housing, squeeze into the church for now. Cement goes up tomorrow, stone houses start the day after." "Got it," she scribbled. "And Gray, you said he's got mining experience. Have him sync up with you on material ratios tomorrow. He knows how to mix aggregate." She nodded, wrote more. "And the blacksmith, we're short on. Iron farm tools first, then nails and building hardware, weapons after that. Get the leftover scrap metal counted. Send him to me tomorrow." Anna's pen could barely keep up. "And the carpenter, old John knows him. Let John handle it." "Got it." She finally finished, closed her ledger, caught her breath, and looked at me. She wanted to say something, but hesitated. "Spit it out," I said. "Your Highness." This afternoon, while John was packing the wall foundation, he found tracks in the snow to the west. "What kind of tracks?" "Horse hooves." Her voice dropped. "More than one." John counted 7 or 8. "They circled our perimeter, lingered near the northwest corner for a while, then headed north." I waited, watching her finish. "John says that direction. That's bandit territory." The wind whistled through cracks in the half-built wall. I looked toward the northwest. Just deep snow and gray sky. Nothing visible. "Understood," I said calmly. "Keep handling the new arrivals. Don't worry about the rest." She nodded and went back to work. I pulled up the system panel, checked today's emotion point haul. Good numbers. But I wasn't really focused on that. My eyes landed on a newly lit icon in the corner. System warning. Hostile activity detected at territory border. Target. Armed group. Head count unknown. Currently observing. Your territory has attracted attention. I closed the panel. Honestly, saw this coming. A literal warm bubble with smoke rising out of a frozen death wasteland was never going to stay hidden. The question wasn't if bandits would notice. It was when they'd show up, how many, and how I planned to welcome them. Elia appeared beside me without a sound, following my gaze to the northwest. Something quietly burned in those red eyes. You're thinking about the bandits. Yeah, Elia could go, said casually, like offering to grab a snack. One night, problem cleared. No need. She turned to look at me. Why not? I didn't answer, just looked back at the rock pile. Go tell Hans to start a night watch rotation along the west side starting tonight. 2-hour shifts. Report anything immediately. Yes. She walked off a few steps, stopped, turned back. Your Highness. Yeah. She hesitated like she was weighing something carefully, then just said, I love you. I didn't say me too. I didn't reject it either. Just looked at her calmly for a beat, then went back to checking the rock pile. Direct hit. And from a cute girl, no less. My brain straight up crashed. Mouth opened. Nothing came out. She watched my face for exactly 1 second, then turned and walked away. Night settled in. New Snowfall Town had its first real evening with 3 pots cooking at once, smoke curling up inside the warm bubble, cozy and alive. Gray sat next to old John, drinking porridge in silence, occasionally looking up at the place around him before lowering his head again. The smallest kid finally cried, not from pain, just from impatience while the old woman blew on porridge that was too hot. The people nearby laughed, scattered and soft. I sat on a low slope a bit away, listening to the crying kid, running through tomorrow's plans in my head, making sure nothing slipped through the cracks. If the bandits were coming eventually, I needed to be ready before they were. My eyes drifted toward that invisible darkness in the northwest. Your Highness, time to rest. You've worked all day. Elia walked over from the church carrying a steaming cup of tea, sat down behind me, and held it out. Calming tea. Set to your favorite temperature. Thanks, Elia. It's the least I can do. As long as your Highness never leaves me, never sneaks off one morning without waking me, I'll make you tea forever. Yeah. She's never letting that go. I drank it slowly. Drowsiness hit fast, energy draining out of me almost immediately. Elia, is this tea really that strong? Yes, I'm getting really sleepy. I leaned into her, eyes closing, falling into a deep sleep. Good night, my prince. Elia's cheeks flushed, voice dripping with that warped sweetness only she had. She leaned down, breathing in the scent of my neck, drinking in the moment. Defenseless, completely unguarded. Exactly what she'd always dreamed of. She lifted me effortlessly, strength of a sealed, which making my body weigh basically nothing, and carried me through the hall, into the room closest to the geothermal core, the priest's old bedroom. She laid me on the fur-covered bed, knelt beside it, carefully removed my coat and boots, and tucked the blanket in. She traced my face with her fingers, almost reverent. You were so cold to me today, she whispered, voice syrupy with self-pity. I told you I love you, and you said nothing back. Her fingers drifted down, stopping at my throat. One small bit of pressure, and nobody in this world would ever steal my attention away again. She didn't press down. Instead, she leaned in and pressed the lightest, most reverent kiss to my lips. It's fine. As long as you keep drinking my tea, your nights will only ever belong to Elia. I should note this chapter gets into intimate/sexual content involving the characters, so I'll summarize the plot and tone without writing out the explicit physical details. So apparently that calming tea was less chamomile and more knockout drops, because I went down hard and fast, out cold on the bed, completely defenseless, which, for Elia, was basically Christmas morning. She could sense bandit scouts lurking near our border in the storm, and didn't care even slightly, because nothing mattered more to her right now than her unconscious prince lying right in front of her. She started undressing me, slowly, reverently, and once my shirt was off, she just lost it a little, muttering about how I'd looked at Anna 3 times today, smiled at the old chief, talked to that blind old man for way too long. Apparently, I'm not allowed to be friendly to anyone now. Cool, very normal. Then she pulled out the secret chain again. Yes, that chain, and looped one end around my wrist, the other around hers, connecting us. This way you can't go anywhere, she said, satisfied. Then she leaned down and bit my collarbone, marking her territory, basically, which is when I grabbed her. Turns out, the pain immunity perk I got from the system after the whole ankle hammer incident made that little bite sting just enough to snap me wide awake through the sedative. Surprise, Elia, your knockout tea has a design flaw. I flipped our positions, suddenly very much awake and very much not groggy, looking down at her completely busted. Sneaking around your master's body in the middle of the night, biting people while they're asleep. Bold of you to think a cheap sleepy time tea could actually take me down, she panicked. Instantly, the murder confidence draining right out of her, replaced by genuine fear. Terrified I'd be disgusted with her, terrified I'd fire her as my personal maid for going way too far. I rattled the chain still connecting our wrists. Even brought the hammer chain out again. What? Hoping to relive the carriage incident. Break my arms and legs this time. No, never that, she said frantically, hair a mess against the furs, genuinely scared now. Elia just wanted to feel you close. Wanted to leave a little piece of you on me. The chain was just so you wouldn't leave. I'm sorry, please don't be mad. Looking at her like that, flushed, breathless, completely undone with embarrassment, something shifted in me too. You think a quick sorry fixes overstepping like this, so? Let's just say the night took a turn neither of us were exactly mad about, and I'll leave the rest to your imagination rather than spell it out. 5 days later. The wind was still howling across the wasteland, but when it hit Blackstone Ridge's west side now, it just bounced off a brand new gray wall, 3 meters tall, half-circle shaped. Total upgrade. Inside that wall, pure magic. The Tier 2 core kept a 500-meter radius warm as spring. A dozen plus solid houses now stood where there used to be mud. Easy, easy, there's enough for everyone, Anna shouted at the church square, managing a line of over 200 refugees waiting for hot wheat porridge. Word had spread fast. Anyone who survived the white disaster heard about the warmth and smoke coming off New Snowfall Town and dragged themselves here through the storm. I didn't turn anyone away. New rule: work for food and shelter. The Lord truly is a merciful God, one freshly fed refugee sobbed, bowing toward the church. I stood on the church steps, cloak billowing, looking out over my thriving little kingdom while the system happily pinged in my head. Ding. Population exceeded 200. Cohesion at peak levels. Sustained worship and awe income detected. Steady emotion gain, 500/day. Current balance, 15,600 points. Enough points for a new purchase. Repeating crossbow blueprint? I looked like I was meditating, but really I was just browsing the shop. Population alone doesn't keep you alive out here. I needed an actual armed force. Owning weapons versus actually wielding them are two very different games. And crossbows? Cheapest way to turn farmers into a real fighting force, at least until I can unlock steam tech and guns. Your Highness, today's tea is safe to drink, I promise, Elia said, holding a tray, standing dutifully beside me. She ditched the ratty maid outfit for a fitted black silk dress made from church fabric, plus a nun-style coat over it. Hair tied up high with a red ribbon. Less soft and vulnerable, more devastatingly elegant and slightly terrifying. Since our little incident the other night, she'd settled into this weird, twisted equilibrium. Extremely obedient and clingy now, as long as nobody else came near me. Honestly, when she's not threatening murder, she's gorgeous. Appreciate it, I said, sipping the tea, eyes drifting to the big wooden gate on the west side. Entrance to the ice track leading to Black Pine Valley. Bandit sightings had been frequent these past few days, but nobody'd actually caught one. And they hadn't attacked either. This eerie calm felt exactly like the silence before a real storm. They were definitely planning something, just waiting for the right moment to crush this brand new town. I kept construction going at full speed while starting a new research project. Should be about time Gray's mining team gets back from Black Pine Valley, I muttered, glancing at the lowering sun, eyebrow twitching slightly. Then WLO. Too sharp, urgent horn blasts from the west wall. Hans's watchtower. Something's wrong. Open the gate. Open it now. His voice cracked from panic. The whole cheerful square went dead silent instantly. Refugees froze mid-sip, that fragile sense of safety crumbling in real time. Creak. Militiamen shoved the heavy doors open. The smell of blood and storm hit everyone at once. Gray stumbled through the gate, covered in horrifying amounts of blood, his coat slashed open in multiple places, half an arrow shaft still sticking out of his arm. Behind him, 5 or 6 other wounded miners dragged a sled that should have been packed with rock. Instead, 3 mangled bodies. Oh God, that's little Jimmy. He just turned 15 yesterday. A woman shrieked from the crowd, scrambling toward the sled, collapsing onto one of the bodies, sobbing. Panic spread instantly through New Snowfall Town. What happened? I was already at the sled. Didn't look at the bodies, just stared coldly at Gray, kneeling on the ground. Why, Your Highness? Gray looked up, his one good eye full of tears and pure rage. He smashed his forehead into the mud, voice raw like a dying crow. Bloodhand. Bloodhand bandits did this. We finished loading the stone, we're heading back, and they came charging out of the slopes on both sides. Horses, bows. We never stood a chance. They didn't kill all of us. They let us live on purpose. So we'd come back and tell you. Gray gripped the mud, shaking violently. Their one-eyed boss destroyed all our gravel. He hung little Jimmy's head and the others on the ice track. He sent a message to every refugee in the wasteland. He said Snowfall Town is a dead city. Says anyone who hauls a single stone here, anyone who walks through our gates from now on, he kills their whole family. Boils them into soup. Silence crashed over the entire square. 200+ refugees frozen solid. Bloodhand. These cannibal scumbags didn't even bother attacking our walls. They went for the slow, vicious method instead. Choke off our building materials. Choke off our population growth. Out here in the wasteland, getting blockaded by Bloodhand is basically a death sentence. And maybe we should run. A few newer refugees started backing away, eyes darting around. Ding. Panic spreading through territory. Cohesion slightly dropping. Elia, standing beside me, stared at the three bodies, then heard the crowd start to crack. Her red eyes flooded with pure murder. Your Highness, let me go. Blood for blood. Her voice was soft, but the killing intent underneath was nightmare fuel. Tonight, I'll tear those filthy dogs apart at Black Pine Valley, skin and bone. One word from me, and she'd turn the entire wasteland into a bloodbath tonight. I held up a hand, stopping her. Elia, I promise you'll get your turn to enjoy this. I turned slowly, looking over the terrified crowd. No rage on my face. No panic. Just cold, total clarity. They've got horses. This wasteland is their home turf. Sending people out one by one to hunt them down is exactly walking into their trap. They want to starve us out, want us to panic and fall apart. I smirked, dark and dangerous. They have no idea what they're actually messing with. I shook the ice off my cloak and raised my voice across the entire square, loud as thunder. Enna, collect the bodies, bury them with full honors. Their families get double rations from now on, every day. Old John, get the blacksmith and the carpenter to the church, right now. I turned and walked toward the church, leaving everyone with one final, decisive line over my shoulder. They want to play blockade games? Fine. I'll show them what a real steel defense line looks like. I'll show them slaughter on a level this century has never seen. The church hall felt heavy. Tor the blacksmith and Oldwood the carpenter stood awkwardly by the table. Both had snuck into town with the refugee crowd just yesterday. Barely had time to finish their first real meal before getting summoned by the Lord. A blueprint covered with complicated lines sat on the table. Take a look, I said, sitting back, tapping the wood. 50 of these by sunset tomorrow. Possible. Wood leaned in, one good eye scanning the design. He'd worked weapon shops in the capital as a kid, so he stayed calm at first. Your Highness, this looks like a crossbow. He frowned, tracing the lines. But the structure's strange. What's this box for? And this lever, the gear slot's way too complicated. Tor leaned in too, his face dropping instantly. Your Highness, it's not that we don't want to help. The iron parts need crazy precision. Off by even a hair, and the whole thing jams. Just the two of us, working the forge non-stop day and night. We'd maybe finish 3 to 5. Yeah, this design was basically built to make professionals sweat. 50 in a day, even working themselves to death, was never happening with 2 guys alone. Who said the 2 of you need to hand-carve every piece? I stood, grabbed a charcoal stick, drew thick lines across the blueprint, breaking the complex crossbow into separate parts. Magazine, body, lever, iron mechanism, bowstring. Dead serious now. Wood, you're not making a full crossbow. Your only job, carve 3 perfectly standardized wooden molds, using the hardest wood you've got. Tor, same deal. Forge me some metal molds. Both men blinked, confused. Your Highness, molds alone won't finish a crossbow. You need skilled hands to actually carve and forge them. Don't need skilled hands. I've got 200 desperate people who'll work themselves to the bone to survive. I walked to the side door, pointed out at the refugee camp. I'll give you 50 of the strongest men, 30 of the most careful women. Split into 5 groups. Group 1. Take your wood mold, clamp the lumber in, saw along the edge. Don't need carpentry skills, just need to know how to pull a saw. Group 2. Only sands down the rough edges. Group 3. Only works the bellows, melts scrap iron, pours it into Tor's metal molds. Group 4. Only twists rope into bowstrings. Group 5. Only handles final assembly. I kept it simple but heavy. Stop thinking about how to build the whole crossbow. Make every person one tiny gear in the machine. They only need to repeat one ridiculously simple motion. This is called an assembly line. Both men's eyes went wide like lightning struck them. Breaking down a complicated craft into dumb, repeatable motions? Standardizing the parts so anything's swappable and interchangeable? These guys had spent their whole lives doing skilled trade work and never even dreamed of a production method like this. If this actually worked, 50 crossbows wouldn't even be a stretch. With enough raw material, 500 in a few days, easy. Turning people into tools like this. Wood's lips trembled, looking at me with pure awe now. Enough talk. Old John. Within minutes, John had gathered 80 men and women into a roomy stone building at the edge of town. A makeshift weapons workshop sprang to life almost instantly. Clang, clang, clang. The furnace roared. Tor, shirtless, hammered out the first standardized iron casting. Refugees took turns at the bellows, melting down old farm tools and scrap into endless streams of crossbow mechanisms and bolt heads. Elsewhere, the screech of saws filled the air. People had no idea what they were even building, just clamped wood into wood's molds and sawed blindly along the edge. Sawdust everywhere, sweat mixing with forge heat. No artistry, no fine craftsmanship, just pure, brutal industrial efficiency. I watched from the upper floor, listening to this world's very first assembly line clatter to life. Honestly, building strength up brick by brick like this felt way more solid than just relying on raw cheat power. Of course, all that noise didn't go unnoticed by the camp outside. As night fell, a few men huddled behind some makeshift tents whispering. Their leader, a rat-faced guy nicknamed Skinny Monkey, wasn't actually a refugee. He was a planted spy for the Bloodhand bandits. Boss, you hear that workshop racket? You think the little lord's making weapons? Should we sabotage it? One of his guys whispered. Sabotage my ass. Skinny Monkey spat on the ground, sneering. A bunch of dirt-poor farmers with barely any iron, learning on the fly? They'll make a few wooden spears at best, maybe some flimsy shields. Our boss has 100 riders. Even if these idiots build a mountain of spears, our horses trample right through it. This lord's just panicking, throwing whatever he's got at the wall. The other spies nodded, laughing along. In their minds, real weapons take time and master craftsmen. A half-day of noise was just a dying town's last gasp. Skinny Monkey checked the sky, grinning with cruel cunning. Forget that junk. Did you notice? Half their West Side guards got pulled to work that stupid workshop. Tonight, midnight, we run the plan. You two set fire near the granary, cause chaos. I'll take the rest and pry open the west gate. Once the signal's out, the boss rides in with everyone. And Snowfall Town's geothermal stone and that overflowing grain store belongs to Bloodhand. A nest of snakes, hiding in the shadows, congratulating themselves on a perfect plan they thought nobody saw coming. What they didn't know, a pair of cold, dead-still ruby eyes had already clocked every single one of their movements from somewhere nearby. Deep into the night, the workshop forge still burned. I sat at the table, holding a freshly assembled crossbow. Unpainted, splinters still visible, the metal still scorched black from the forge. Honestly, it looked like an ugly wooden box held together with scraps. But the moment I clicked a 10-bolt magazine into place, the whole ugly thing radiated pure, cold menace. Your Highness, the rats are finally moving, Elia said, slipping in through the window, skirt arcing gracefully through the air. She walked over, voice dripping with unsettling delight. They've split into 2 groups. One's setting fire near the granary, the other's sawing through the west gate's bolt right now. Should Elia go remove their heads? I didn't answer right away. I picked up the heavy crossbow, walked to the second-floor window. 60 paces out stood a thick wooden test target. No need to stop them. Cold eyes, steady hands. I leveled the crossbow and yanked the side lever. Clack! The mechanism loaded with a satisfying snap. Killing a few rats won't change the bandits' greed for this place. I pulled the trigger. THWP. A shadow tore through the snowy night and slammed into the distant target. I didn't stop. My hand blurred, pulling and firing again and again. Clack, clack, clack. THWP, THWP, THWP. In about 3 breaths, 10 bolts rained down on that target, turning it into a porcupine. A few even punched clean through, leaving black holes on the other side. Elia watched the fire rate and power, eyes narrowing slightly. Even a supernatural fighter might not walk away clean from enough of these going off at once. This little show needs those spies to drag Bloodhand's main force straight to my doorstep, fully intact, I said, lowering the crossbow, still smelling faintly of scorched wood. I turned to Elia, who looked at me like I'd hung the moon, and smirked. Go tell Hans. Get every finished crossbow up on the west wall. Since they're opening the door for us themselves, let's make sure our welcome party is properly generous. Less than an hour after the test shots, 50 silent shapes were already hiding behind the unfinished west wall. Quiet, everyone. Keep your fingers off the trigger till it's time, Hans whispered, pacing the trench. Every militiaman gripped a crossbow that still smelled like fresh sawdust, all eyes locked on the gate 100 paces out. Your Highness, the trap's set, Elia said from the shadows beside me, red eyes gleaming. Skinny Monkey's group is sawing the gate bolt. 3 more snuck towards storage building number 3. I rubbed my thumb along the trigger. Don't care about the granary crew. As long as they torch some empty hay, Skinny Monkey thinks the plan worked and opens the front door for us himself. Meanwhile, behind storage building 3, 16-year-old Tommy was face down in the snow, fingers raw and blistered from the cold, digging through the powder with shaking hands. Tommy was, by everyone's account, the camp's biggest coward. But his mom was seriously sick. Earlier that day, hauling grain, he'd seen a few stray wheat grains spill from a torn sack into the snow outside the storehouse. Couldn't sleep that night thinking about it. So this kid who jumps at his own shadow snuck out of the warm shelter to go pick up grain off the ground. Found it. Grain number 3, he whispered, pocketing the frozen kernel. Then he heard rustling in the snow. He ducked behind a pile of scrap wood, peeking out, and saw 3 shadowy figures sneaking up to the storehouse. Damn it, one bandit hissed, slicing open a sack with his knife, expecting golden wheat to spill out. Instead, gray river sand, mixed with ice chunks. Where's the wheat? I watched them carry sacks in here all day. Another panicked, cutting open more sacks. All sand. Every single one. Tommy, hidden, didn't know why the sacks were full of sand, but he understood one thing perfectly. These guys were bad news. We've been played. That little lord's running a con on us, the leader hissed, cold dread shooting through him. Light it now? Fire and chaos. That's the signal. Monkey opens the gate the second he sees smoke. He pulled out a fire striker, lit a torch, ready to throw it onto the hay pile. If that fire spread, all of New Snowfall Town's hard work would burn to nothing. Tommy's whole body shook, biting his lip until it bled. Every fiber of him wanted to close his eyes and play dead. But every time he tried, all he could see was the Lord personally bringing his mom a bowl of hot porridge. This place was their only chance at survival. Don't you dare burn it, a scream tore out of him, half sob, half raw fury, with every ounce of strength he had. He didn't even know where the courage came from. Like a cornered animal, he bolted out from behind the wood pile and slammed his whole body into the bandit holding the torch. Ow! The bandit stumbled, torch flying into a snowbank, instantly snuffed out. What little rat is this? You're dead. The bandit recovered, saw it was just a skinny kid, sneered, and kicked Tommy hard in the stomach. Thud! Tommy flew backward into the snow, blood and stomach acid dribbling from his mouth. Pain so intense he nearly blacked out. Someone help. Bandits. Help. He screamed anyway, even crumpled in the snow, unable to get up. Shut him up. Kill him. The bandit's eyes went bloodshot, drew a rusty knife, kicked Tommy's back repeatedly. But this terrified kid found something unbreakable in himself. He wrapped both arms around the bandit's leg and bit down, hard, into his calf, refusing to let go even as he got kicked. You little mutt. Die. The bandit, in agony, raised his knife high, aiming for the back of Tommy's skull. Tommy closed his eyes, accepting it. Mom. Sorry, I tried my best. THWP. THWP. Two bolts ripped through the storm, less than an inch from Tommy's head, and punched clean through the bandit's throat and his buddy's too. The impact threw one body backward, pinning it to a wooden post. The last bandit panicked, tried to run, and a silver chain shot out of the dark, wrapped his neck, and snapped it instantly. I walked out of the storm with Elia at my side. Tommy's scream had alerted me too, since I was patrolling nearby. I crouched in front of the wrecked kid in the snow, eyebrow raised. I hadn't even stationed anyone here. You're supposed to be in the shelter. What are you doing out here? I asked, voice low. Tommy let go, dazed, staring up at me like I'd descended from heaven. Ashamed, he opened his frozen palm. 3 little grains of wheat mixed with melted snow. I'm a useless coward. I just wanted to grab some grain that fell from my mom. I wasn't trying to steal, Your Highness. I just didn't want them to burn this place down. I looked at those 3 pathetic little grains in his trembling palm. Then at the state of him, beaten bloody, still refusing to let go of an armed man's leg with his teeth. Something genuinely shifted in me. I'd planned for human greed, planned for bandit cruelty. What I hadn't planned for was one bowl of porridge turning the most cowardly refugee in this whole camp into someone willing to die defending this place. I crouched down, ignored the blood and mud, and pulled him up onto his feet. You're not a coward. I gripped his shoulder hard, voice carrying through the storm. You were terrified, and you still chose to protect everyone's food, even knowing you might die for it. That's what an actual hero looks like. You did good. You just defended this whole town's dignity. Tommy's head snapped up, blood roaring through him with pure adrenaline. He'd die 100 times over for this lord now, no question. Your Highness, Elia said quietly, glancing west. That scream was loud. The gate crew definitely heard it. 2 kilometers out, behind a snow dune, 300+ reeking bloodhand bandits crouched in the dark like hungry hyenas waiting for dinner. Boss, look. Fires burning in the town. Alarms going off. One grunt pointed excitedly at a faint red glow in the distance. Skinny Monkey pulled it off. Huh? Excellent. The one-eyed bandit boss licked his cracked lips, his remaining eye gleaming with pure greed and cruelty. A washed-up reject prince thinks a couple of broken stone walls makes him king of the wasteland? Today I teach him exactly who runs Blackstone Ridge. He drew his blood-crusted cleaver, pointed it at the town, and roared at his men. Brothers, that town's got food that never runs out, heated floors, and word is the reject prince keeps a top-tier white-haired, red-eyed maid by his side. Once that gate's open, charge in and don't hold back. Chop up every man. The food and the women are ours. A whoa. Hundreds of bandits howled like animals, greed maxed out completely. In their minds, this town wasn't a fortress. It was a freshly plucked, defenseless sheep. Meanwhile, on our west wall, Hans and 50 militiamen lay flat behind the newly poured cement, lips blue from cold, gripping their crossbows. Creak. A horrible grinding sound erupted below. Hans peeked over the wall, eyes blown wide. The massive oak gate, the gate meant to keep everyone out, was being pulled open from the inside. Wind and snow poured into what was supposed to be safe territory. What? Why's the gate open? Hans screamed down. No answer. Just a few shadowy figures fleeing into the dark after opening it. The ground started shaking. Snow trembled off the wall. Hundreds of torches lit up the storm like demons crawling out of hell, charging straight for the gate. It's Bloodhand. They're coming. Militiamen screamed in panic. We're done. The gate's open. We're all dead. Someone collapsed in despair. Hans gritted his teeth, eyes blazing through fear and fury, drawing his sword. Why are you panicking? His Highness gave us our lives. Today we pay it back. Prepare to die fighting if we have to. 2 of you, ride to the church and tell His Highness now. Captain, what about the women and elderly? Should we evacuate them east? One militiaman asked desperately. Evacuate where? Hans snapped, eyes shut in despair. Step outside the heated zone, and they'll freeze solid before you walk half a mile. And you think anyone outruns bandit horses? That's a death sentence on its own. Just as Hans prepared to throw himself off the wall to physically block the gate. Everyone hold your weapons steady. Don't shoot your own people by accident. An old, calm voice cut through the chaos. Hans spun around. Old Rigama, bundled in winter gear, lantern in hand, was climbing the wooden ladder up the wall, totally unbothered. Rigama, what are you doing up here? It's dangerous. Get down. I came up because you hot-headed kids are about to ruin His Highness's whole plan. The old driver walked to the wall edge, looked at the wave of bandits flooding in, no fear in his cloudy old eyes. Just pure trust. Relax. His Highness opened that gate on purpose. He raised his lantern, lowered his voice, relaying the boss's exact orders. Listen to me. Stay hidden. Nobody fires without an order. His Highness said the storm's too thick to fight them outside without letting some rats escape. Tonight, we close the door and beat the dogs. The militia exchanged stunned looks. Deliberately let 300 murderous riders inside. Sounds like inviting wolves to dinner. But since it was the old driver saying it, Hans swallowed his shock and gave the order. Everyone hide. Follow the plan. Kill them all. The one-eyed boss led the charge, 300-plus riders pouring through the gate like a locust swarm. Boss, I opened the gate for you. Skinny Monkey waved frantically by the entrance, eager for credit. The boss glanced at him, eyes flashing pure cruelty. Worthless, he didn't even slow his horse. Just rode straight over Skinny Monkey, hooves the size of dinner plates crushing his chest flat. The smug little spy didn't even get a last word out before getting pulverized into paste. The boss closed his one eye, breathing in the bloody, snowy air, savoring the moment of smashing through someone's gate. Next came the usual fun, desperate refugee screams, a noble brat begging on his knees, looting and slaughter on tap. Search everything. Don't miss a corner. 300 horses thundered into the town square, and the boss's grin froze. No screaming, no fleeing crowd, just torchlight on empty streets and shut doors. The whole town sat dead silent, nothing but the heavy breathing of their own horses. Where is everyone? Where'd these dirt farmers go? One bandit captain shouted, reining in his confused horse. A serpent-cold chill crawled up the boss's spine. Years of living on the edge had honed his instincts, and right now they were screaming one word: wrong. This didn't look like a town that just fell. This looked like a setup. Boom. A heavy slam echoed behind them. The boss whipped around, pupils shrinking to pinpricks. The huge oak gate, wide open seconds ago, was already being slammed shut by a group of strong men who'd been hiding behind it. Clack! The iron-reinforced bolt dropped into place, sealing the exit completely. No, it's a trap. Turn around. Charge out now, the boss screamed, all his earlier arrogance instantly replaced by ice-cold panic. Too late. SHHHK. Dozens of torches lit up simultaneously from the shadows along the walls. Old Rigama raised his lantern high and swung it down. Now, at Hans's roar, 50 militiamen who'd been hiding flat against the wall and rooftops all stood at once, crossbows already loaded, gleaming death in the firelight, all aimed down at the panicked mass of bandits in the square. But that wasn't even the worst of it. A unit of organized footsteps echoed down the main street. Over 100 fighters, miners, hunters, even strong farm women, emerged from behind stone houses on both sides. No fancy weapons, just sharpened wooden spears, rusty pitchforks, and farm tools tied to rocks. But in front of them, rows of giant crossed wooden stakes, taller than a man, shoved into place, completely sealing off the only path forward. Spike wall in front, sealed gate behind, 50 loaded crossbows above. Their famous cavalry mobility couldn't even get a running start now. The bandits who'd been screaming about massacring this town minutes ago were now just helpless targets in a shooting gallery. What? What kind of trap is this? The bandits fought to control their spooked horses, all that swagger drowning instantly in despair. They were dogs herded into a slaughterhouse, waiting for the end. Crisp boot steps echoed across the firelit square. I walked up the high steps in my black cloak, Elia beside me, looking down at this collapsing, terrified mob, watching them go from arrogant to shaking, and let myself smirk. Welcome to New Snowfall Town. I raised my right hand into the night air and brought it down hard. Fire. The air just shredded apart. 500 crude iron bolts turned into a wall of death raining down on the square in seconds. Way too close. Under 50 paces, plus the high ground advantage, those crossbows hit with insane penetrating power. The one-eyed boss just saw a black blur coming straight at him. THWP, THWP, THWP. The sound of metal hitting flesh drowned out even the storm. The front line of bandits didn't even have time to scream before getting punched through by invisible hammers. Their thick leather armor, their stolen rusty chainmail. All of it tissue paper against crossbow bolts at this range. My leg. My eyes. Dozens of bandits got turned into pincushions instantly, knocked clean off their horses, crashing into the riders behind them. The panicked horses had it worse, blinded, throats pierced, rearing up in agony and trampling everything around them. Chaos. Crushing. Screaming. The proud cavalry charge collapsed in seconds under the first volley. Wait for the reload gap. We can still countercharge. What kind of sorcery is this? They don't even need to rest string it. One bandit captain who dodged the first volley screamed and tried to will his horse around. Up on the wall, Hans's eyes were blood red, grinning with pure revenge. Swap magazines. Second volley, fire. Click. Less than 2 seconds and 50 militiamen slammed in fresh magazines, pulled the trigger again. Another 500 bolts. Another wave of Black Death, this time blanketing the back half of the square where the bandits were packed densest. Another one-sided massacre. The one-eyed boss managed to deflect 2 bolts aimed at his face with his cleaver, but a third punched clean through his right shoulder, ripping him off his horse and slamming him into the mud. No, this can't be happening, he gasped, clutching his bleeding shoulder, terror filling his one remaining eye. He'd faced regular army units. He'd seen mages. None of it prepared him for this. The young lord watching calmly from the high platform wasn't looking at a feared bandit army anymore. He was looking at pigs being herded into a slaughterhouse. In my head, the system was going absolutely insane. Ding. Bandits experiencing extreme shock and collapse. Terror, 1,500. 2,000. 3,500. Ding. Enemy leaders' faith fully collapsing. Despair, 5,000. Ding. Your own militia just crushed a real threat. Their devotion to you peaked. Fanatic worship, 8,000. Current balance, 45,800 points. I listened to that beautiful chime with zero expression on my face. After 3 volleys, the militia stopped firing, not out of mercy, just because the cheap wooden crossbows had started cracking under the strain. But it didn't matter. The job was done. The square was a sea of corpses. Of the 300-plus bandits, less than a third still stood. Bodies turned into pincushions everywhere, dying horses scattered through the mess, the smell of blood thick enough to choke out the cold. Clank. Someone dropped their sword first. Then more clanking followed. The remaining 100-ish bandits broke completely. No fight left in them at all. They dropped to their knees in the blood and started bowing toward me, desperate. Mercy, my lord. Please, no more arrows, we surrender. We'll be your slaves, just don't kill us. I rose from my chair, walked down the blood-stained steps, one step at a time, to the center of the square. Elia followed, red eyes shining with that disturbing kind of excitement, chain clinking under her skirt. Anyone stupid enough to try something would get their spine pulled out. No hesitation. I stopped in front of the one-eyed boss. The same guy who'd been screaming about slaughtering this town minutes ago now lay there shaking, bleeding, terrified, like a dog with nowhere left to run. You said you'd chop up every man in this town and feed them to dogs, I said. Just a few days ago, you tortured my mining crew to death too. Think about how they died. Did they beg at your feet too, crying for mercy, for a chance to live? I looked down at him, stepped my boot onto his good left hand, and slowly, deliberately, ground down. He screamed like a slaughtered pig. Devil. No. Lord. I'm sorry. I was blind. I disrespected your power. Spare my life, and I'll hand over every coin and grain Bloodhand ever stole. Then, like grasping for a lifeline, he forced through the pain and shouted, You can't kill me. Bloodhand isn't some random gang. We belong to the Wasteland Hound Pact. Our leader, Broken Blade, commands a dozen-plus raiding crews. Over 1,000 riders, not regular cavalry either. Heavy armor, and at least 2 supernatural fighters in his ranks. He's calling a full gang summit soon. Kill me, and the whole pact will wipe your territory off the map. Keep me alive, and I can broker peace with him for you. The militiamen and villagers nearby, who'd just been riding high off a hard-won victory, felt their excitement crash instantly. The Wasteland Hound Pact? 1,000 elite riders? Actual supernatural fighters? Turns out this frozen death wasteland was hiding an even bigger monster the whole time. If it took every resource we had to beat a few hundred bandits, what happens when 1,000 fully equipped riders show up at our gate? The militia exchanged terrified looks, panic creeping back in. I didn't even blink. Got the intel. Thanks. I lifted my boot off his crushed fingers. The boss lit up with hope. Thank you, my lord. Thank you. I'll head back right away. Set up a meeting between you and our leader. Work together. And there's no treasure on this wasteland we can't take. Elia, I said, not even bothering to look at him again, already walking back toward the platform. Strip the rest of their gear, chain them up. We'll judge them properly tomorrow. As for him, I disappeared into the snow, leaving one final, cold verdict behind me. Too loud. Clean it up. Yes, my master. Elia's eyes lit with delighted bloodlust. No, you can't. The boss screamed, eyes wide with horror. Crack. A silver flash cut through the night. Hammer and chain came down like the Grim Reaper's scythe, instantly crushing his skull flat. Elia calmly coiled the chain back up through the falling blood mist. I stood on the church steps watching my system balance break 40,000 points, something wild burning behind my eyes. 1,000 riders, huh? Let's see who finds who first. Next morning brought a rare clear sky to New Snowfall Town. Last night's blood was already buried under fresh snow, but the 100+ chained bandit prisoners, stripped of their armor, told the whole story without saying a word. I held a quick trial on the platform. No speeches, no mercy. All 100 sturdy bandits got assigned to a labor camp. Old John, they're yours now. 2 bowls of porridge a day, and as long as they're breathing, put them on construction. Anyone disobeys, shoot them on the spot. Anna, organize supplies. Collect all the bandit horses. Healthy ones become war mounts. Injured ones become dinner. I kept the operation rolling efficiently. Crisis avoided, sure, but I'm not the type to just sit and wait for the next disaster. The Wasteland Hound Pact hung over us like a sword dangling by a thread. Since they clearly had a huge network around here, I needed to scout the terrain and figure out where the local nobles stood before that army fully mobilized. Hans, pick 20 of our best riders, bring crossbows. I threw on my cloak, mounted my black warhorse, eyes sharp. Riding out. Time to go meet some arrogant nobles. 2 hours later, my squad of 20 stopped in front of a fortified stone castle on a hillside, the nearest noble territory to our town. Ironwood Keep, ruled by Baron Kyle Ironwood, supposedly the real power player around Blackstone Ridge. But facing an actual royal prince, Ironwood's gates stayed firmly shut. The soldiers on the wall just stared like we weren't even there. Your Highness, not that we don't want to let you in, but this white disaster just wiped us out too. Barely any rats left alive in our pantry. Baron Kyle shouted from the wall, wrapped in fur, sipping warm wine, clearly enjoying being condescending from a safe distance. And I heard you've stirred up trouble with the Wasteland Hound Pact? He smirked. Those guys don't blink before killing someone. You should probably run back to the capital, Your Highness. Ironwood's got too few soldiers to get dragged into your suicide mission, and definitely no spare grain to send your way. That disgusting pig, talking to you like that. Elia's eyes flooded with murder, chain already sliding into her grip. Your Highness, let Elia pull his tongue out. We're leaving. I held her back. No anger on my face, just calm. Honestly, didn't expect any of these border barons to lift a finger for us anyway. This trip was just a formality. We rode on, past 2 smaller noble territories. Same result every time. Shut gates, cold indifference. Just as I was about to turn the squad back toward home. Your Highness, look over there, Hans shouted, pointing toward the horizon. A few miles out, thick black smoke spiraled into the sky, breaking the calm white landscape. Faint sounds of clashing weapons and screaming drifted on the wind. I spurred my horse, the squad shooting up a nearby ridge like an arrow. Below us, a noble estate with nothing but a flimsy wooden fence instead of real walls, getting torn apart by nearly 100 bandits. Their banner showed a snarling hound. Wasteland Hound Pact. Already here. The estate's defenses were crumbling, but surprisingly, the gap in the fence hadn't fallen yet. A young noble in beat-up silver armor was swinging a blood-soaked sword, holding the breach alongside a dozen retainers, hundreds of terrified civilians huddled behind them. The kid was already bleeding from multiple wounds, but refused to back down, shouting orders to his men. Hold the line. Protecting these people is what nobility means. We do not let these animals through. His voice was raw, screaming through the storm. Interesting, I said, narrowing my eyes. Your Highness, they're about to break. Hans said, gripping his crossbow tight. Get ready. I didn't hesitate, pulled my crossbow off the saddle, cocked it. Since the hound pack decided to show up early, let's call this a live training exercise. I glanced at Elia, who was already vibrating with bloodlust beside me, and smiled. Hans, free fire. Elia, I looked at my murder-loving little maid. Go have fun. As you wish, my master. The next second, 20 Blackstone riders charged down the slope like Black Death incarnate. Behind their charge, the clattering snap of 50 crossbows firing from 60 paces, and a silver chain tearing through the snow like death itself unleashed. Take them down. Leave none standing. Hold. For the Valerius name. We do not break. At the broken fence gap, young Baron Victor gripped a chipped longsword with both hands. The guy was clearly built for paperwork, not combat. His fancy ceremonial armor was now soaked in mud and blood, his shoulder plate cracked open and bleeding freely. Even with his arms shaking from exhaustion, he kept his textbook fencing stance, the kind only nobility-tutored kids learn. Behind him, less than 10 wounded retainers, defense crumbling, with nearly 400 terrified civilians hiding in cellars praying for a miracle. Baron, we can't hold. Please flee, a guard sobbed, before getting cut down by a rusty sword. Ha! Cut these stubborn fools down. Baron Meat makes great soup. Nearly 100 bandits wearing houndskull masks howled with cruel laughter outside the fence, toying with their exhausted prey like hyenas closing in for the kill. A bald bandit leader stepped forward, twin bloody axes in hand, sneering at the heaving victor. Baron, this little wood fence excuse for an estate, and you dare refuse our grain tax? He licked blood off his axe. Hand over the women and food behind you, and I might even leave your corpse in one piece. Dream on. Victor spat, wiping blood with a trembling, mud-covered hand. His delicate face had gone past fear, settling into something cold and final. In a world where most nobles treated commoners like dirt, Victor was an exception. His upbringing taught him that a lord's job is protecting his people, not running from them. So even knowing he'd die today, he wasn't going anywhere. At least his family line would survive. His younger brother was safely training at the capital's military academy. As the bandits surged forward again, Victor raised his sword. Come and try then. I have people to protect, and I will not run from oblivion. Wrong answer. Chop him into mince, the bald bandit roared, charging with his elite squad behind him. Victor closed his eyes, swinging his sword with every last bit of strength a soft-handed nobleman had left. Right as he braced for death, take them down. Leave none standing. A cold, distant voice cracked through the storm like it came from outside reality itself. Who's there? The bald bandit spun toward the ridge, answered by the deadly clack of crossbows being primed. Clack, 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 clack. 20 black-cloaked riders crested the hill, splitting into 2 flanking formations instead of charging straight in. No need to aim. Rapid fire, Hans roared, and 20 crossbows screamed at once. Hundreds of bolts rained down like an iron storm, tearing through the storm and shredding the densest part of the bandit formation. THWP, THWP, THWP. The cocky bandits dropped in waves without even time to scream, leather armor doing nothing against this kind of penetration. They've got crossbow riders. Shields up, the bald leader screamed in panic. Before he even finished, a silver flash cut through the snow like a death blossom blooming in the cold. What the? He abandoned his horse instantly, scrambling for safety. Who are you? State your name, he demanded. Elia stood there in her maid uniform, skirt whipping in the wind, red eyes lit with pure excitement, looking at him like he was already dead meat. You demon witch. Die. He charged her anyway, swinging both massive axes down on her tiny frame. He picked the wrong target. Clang. A bone-rattling impact. His arm split open at the knuckles from the recoil. His full power swing had been casually blocked, one-handed, with her tiny silver hammer. Too slow, Elia said sweetly, a smile colder than the Arctic itself. Her chain whipped out next, hammer snapping forward like a striking snake. Crunch. His chest caved instantly, sternum shattering, body launching backward over 10 meters and slamming into a dead tree. He died on impact, organs and blood erupting everywhere. Everyone who witnessed it went silent, barely able to breathe. Wait, is that real? She's that strong? Who even is she? One hit. Bandit leader, deleted. Crossbow volley to Elia's solo execution, less than 30 seconds total. The surviving bandits realized their only shot at survival was taking out the strongest threat first. Shields up. She's a brawler. Keep distance. She can't hit what she can't reach. She'll tire out eventually. Elia laughed quietly behind her hand. Is that so? Her hammer swung around like a snake, doubling back, smashing straight through a shield bearer's defense. Boom. The shield disintegrated like cheap cardboard, the bandit behind it exploding into red mist on impact. W.I. Witch. Run. Of the 100-plus Hound Pack bandits, more than half were already dead. The rest looked at the corpse field, looked at this spotless silver-haired demon standing in a sea of blood, and lost every ounce of nerve. They dropped weapons and fled into the wasteland. Your Highness, pursue? Hans asked, lowering his crossbow respectfully. Kill them all. On it. Hans took off after them with his men. Up on the ridge, I rode my black warhorse calmly through the bloodied snow toward the broken estate fence, every bit the unbothered emperor surveying his work. Ding. Bandits experiencing total terror and collapse. Ding. Estate civilians experiencing extreme shock and awe. Emotion points pouring in, 3,000. 5,000. Current balance, 48,000. Hearing my point total skyrocket in real time, I was, honestly, having a pretty great day. Meanwhile, behind the broken fence, Victor and his men still hadn't recovered from the shock. Wait, are we actually saved? Where the hell did these uniformed black-cloaked riders spitting arrow storms come from? And that gorgeous girl who one-shot a bandit leader like he was nothing? It wasn't until my horse stopped in front of him that Victor snapped out of it. Gritting through the shoulder pain, he stabbed his sword into the mud and dropped to one knee in a textbook-perfect knight's salute. I am Victor Valerius. Thank you for saving us, sir. If you hadn't arrived, my 400 people would all be dead today. He looked up, bloodshot eyes still carrying a bookish softness. May I ask your name? Victor will repay this debt properly. I looked down at this bloodied young noble. Noticed right away, no calluses from years of swordplay, just long, soft fingers. A paperwork guy forced into a battle he wasn't built for. Ryan Campbell. I run Blackstone Ridge now, Ryan. Campbell? Victor's pupil shrank, heart skipping. The exiled second prince? The spineless reject? Everyone gossiped about losing his own title? He glanced around in disbelief. Disciplined, blood-soaked crossbow riders, and that demon-tier silver-haired maid. That's spineless and useless, apparently. Why, Your Highness? Victor swallowed hard, voice instantly more respectful. Sir, those were Wasteland Hound Pact. You saved me, but you also killed their people. They're vengeful. They will not let this go. I know, I said with a cold smirk, total disregard for the entire warband. One dog or a pack of them, doesn't matter. Once I've got time, I'll personally cut off their leader's head. I looked past Victor at his crumbling estate, the terrified civilians hiding in the shadows. Your territory's finished, I said bluntly. No walls, no real food supply. Your guards are all dead. Forget the Hound Pact. One more blizzard tonight, and your 400 people freeze solid anyway. Victor shuddered, head dropping in pain. True words hurt. He had all the heart to protect his people and zero actual means to do it. Your Highness, I sent messengers to every neighboring noble. All of them refused to send help. I'm completely on my own out here. Not anymore. I said, no hesitation, extending the offer directly. Join New Snowfall Town, Victor. You beat back the Hound Pact, but they'll come back for revenge. Bring your soldiers, join us, and together we end this Hound Pact problem permanently. Something cracked open in Victor's mind, looking at me like he'd just witnessed an actual king's presence. This was the kind of ruler worth dying for. Without a moment's hesitation, he set his sword down, raised both hands above his head in the formal oath gesture. Serving you would be the Valerius family's greatest honor, he declared. From this day, Victor will be the sharpest pen in your hand, managing your towns, your kingdom, until death, without regret. Ding. Congratulations, host. Successfully recruited epic tier administrative talent. Victor. Territory administrative efficiency massively boosted. Loyalty locked. Devoted. Wait. Epic tier admin talent? Should have led with that. I looked down at Victor, kneeling at my horse, smirking with satisfaction. New employee, secured. 400 fresh, desperately needed laborers, secured. Combine that with the endless food supply from my farm dimension, and I could finally go full throttle on this whole build an empire thing. Storm still raging. Our caravan, 20 crossbow riders escorting 400 refugees, trudged through the wasteland. Victor rode beside me on a borrowed horse, quietly studying my squad the whole way. Their gear was mismatched, but every rider had that sharp, steady look only veteran fighters get. And that strange wooden box weapon they carried, the one that fired repeatedly, that alone made this well-read noble's blood run cold. If something like that could be mass-produced, it'd reshape warfare on the whole continent. "What are you staring at?" I asked, eyes forward, somehow reading his mind through the storm. "Forgive me, Your Highness," Victor said quickly, bowing his head. "I'm just amazed how fast you trained your army, and how advanced your weapons are. Last time I passed through Snowfall Village, there wasn't a proper militia at all. And this repeating crossbow, I've never seen anything like it. Is this new capital technology? If something like this could be mass-produced, the whole world would bow to you." I smiled. "Weapons are just tools. What actually changes the world is who's holding them. As for mass production, you'll see soon enough." I pointed my riding crop toward the faint outline ahead. "I'll show you our factory. Get familiar with the town fast. We need you up to speed quickly." Victor looked where I pointed. The next second, this well-read, capital-raised nobleman yanked his reins tight, eyes blown wide, breath catching in his throat. The entire raging blizzard seemed to slam into an invisible wall. Inside that massive circular zone, zero snow. Black, damp, fertile soil. Over a dozen massive furnaces puffing white steam, the rich smell of roasting meat and wheat drifting through the air. A literal spring oasis carved straight out of hell. This is, Victor stammered. "My God, did Your Highness bring a master mage from the capital to build a geothermal magic circle out here in the snow? Move it. What are you waiting for? Want to turn into a popsicle out here?" I flicked the reins and rode through the heated border. Victor took a deep breath, trying to wrestle his shock under control. He dismounted, walked to that visible line in the snow, pulled off his frozen glove, knelt, and pressed his palm flat against the dark soil. Warm, soft soil, and the air smelled like actual spring. No burnt-out magic crystal smell. He stood, brow deeply furrowed. No burning crystal means this isn't even the cheap version of heating magic. As heir to a noble house, he knew exactly what it should cost to maintain a heated bubble this size in conditions this brutal. Legendary tier magic circles, burning through a premium magic crystal every month just to keep running. And there was none of that here. This kind of power breaking every rule of magic he knew couldn't be bought with money. Period. Behind him, his 400 refugees had already lost it completely, sprawled across the warm mud like it was a religious experience. "My God, this is heaven on earth," an old farmer kissed the dirt, sobbing. Mothers unwrapped their bundled babies, letting them finally breathe warm air. The crowd was practically worshipping the sky. Victor didn't join them. He turned and looked at the figure on horseback, silhouetted against the faint light, calmly surveying the camp. Capital rumors said the second prince was a spineless reject the king discarded. Victor now understood. Those rumors lied to the entire kingdom. This man was anything but ordinary. "Your Highness." The capital's gossip betrayed the whole kingdom, Victor said, voice still trembling, but now with conviction rather than fear. "A man as noble as you could never be the traitor they painted you as. You gave the Valerius family a second life, and showed me what this wasteland could actually become." He lifted his chin, meeting my eyes without flinching. "From this day forward, I dedicate my entire life to you, to this land, and to the Winter Kingdom under your rule." Dang. Victor's loyalty maxed out. Victor is now a devoted follower. 400 new residents experiencing extreme gratitude and fanaticism. Emotion points pouring in, 5,000, 8,000, 12,000. Listening to my balance climb, I felt genuine respect flicker through me. Nobles don't do the hysterical sobbing thing, but their cold, calculated loyalty hits different and lasts longer. "Get up, Victor." I looked down at him. "Your oath's accepted. But around here, loyalty needs to translate into actual value." "Anna, coming, Your Highness." Anna jogged over from the church, ledger clutched against her chest. Victor noticed her outfit and paused slightly. A nun managing secular bookkeeping? In this kingdom, Church and crown stayed strictly separate, clergy traditionally above worldly affairs. But Anna just nodded politely at Victor and took her place beside me like any other subordinate. Victor filed that away without comment. In front of a lord who could apparently change the climate. What's a working nun, really? Victor, starting today, I'm naming you Chief Administrator of New Snowfall Town. I kept moving. Anna, hand over your population and supply records to him. Victor, you've got 3 days to get all 400 new arrivals integrated into the labor system. Come with me. Let's see what you're managing. Victor sheathed his sword and followed. Deeper into town, he spotted over 100 chained, hardened men hauling massive stone blocks across the construction site. They were Bloodhand bandits, I told him. Now they're New Snowfall's convicts. I didn't execute them. They pay their debt through labor. Victor nodded thoughtfully. Traditional and noble wars meant either executing prisoners for show or ransoming them. I just turned them into free labor, merciful and practical at once. Sentence them to labor, Victor said, rubbing his chin. Smart move. But food's scarce right now. How do you afford to feed this many extra mouths? Food's not a problem. I brought plenty from the capital, enough to get everyone through winter. I smiled. Couldn't exactly mention my pocket farm dimension, but honestly, even if population maxed out, I could just upgrade the farm with more points. Then I walked him into the bustling weapons workshop. The second Victor stepped inside, he saw farm women and even elderly disabled men working fast at long tables, none of them looking remotely like trained smiths. His brow furrowed. He walked to a one-legged old farmer, picked up a freshly cut wooden slot, then grabbed a finished one nearby and held them together. Perfect match. Identical, down to the millimeter. Old man, what measuring tool are you using? How are you cutting these so precisely? Victor asked quietly. My lord, I can't read or do numbers, the old man said, pointing at a fixed metal frame on the table. Lord gave us this mold. I just jam the wood in and saw along the edge. Comes out the same every time. Victor turned, scanning down the table, sanding the rough edges, mounting the lever, inserting the pin. Each person handling one ridiculously simple step. Crossbows powerful enough to one-shot a hardened bandit, being assembled continuously without a single master craftsman in the building. Victor took a deep breath, fingers trembling around the wooden slot in his hand. He turned to me, eyes burning with a politician's particular kind of awe. Your Highness, he said quietly, like he was afraid of disturbing something sacred. Breaking down complex craftsmanship into single steps a child could perform. Using standardized molds to erase the gap between a 10-year apprentice and a random farmhand. His eyes lit with raw ambition. This means, with enough material and refugees, you could arm a 10,000-strong force capable of crushing a regular army, all in a stunningly short time, Victor said, voice shaking. You're rewriting the rules of warfare itself. I gave him a long look and let myself smirk. Not bad. The system flagged him as an epic tier admin talent. And yep, he just nailed exactly why industrial assembly lines are terrifying. Glad you get it. Now get to work, I said, clapping his shoulder. New Snowfall Town's future is bigger than you think. But right as Victor was staring at me with that fanatic, lifelong believer kind of look, he suddenly felt an icy, abyssal malice wrap around the back of his neck like a snake. He stiffened, turned slowly, and found Elia, who'd been silently standing nearby this whole time, tilting her head, looking at him like he was either a corpse or a thief caught red-handed near treasure. Her smile was sweet enough to give you frostbite. Under her skirt, fingers tapped quietly, that familiar metallic clink echoing. Internally, Elia was fuming. That bug's eyes are way too into His Highness. His Highness belongs to me. Nobody else gets to look at him like that. I want to pluck his eyeballs out and crush them right in front of him. I sighed internally. My Yandra made jealous of literally everyone. Noted. Victor, sharp politician instincts intact even without combat skills, immediately clocked the danger. He'd already seen her one-shot a bandit leader on the battlefield. Apparently her possessiveness was just as terrifying. He quickly looked away, stared at his own boots, took a polite step back, and basically stopped breathing. Then, SCRECH. A horrifying eagle cry tore through the sky. Crash. Elia's chain whipped out, and a massive snow owl dropped like a stone, smashing into a puddle in the town square. Militiamen dropped their work and crowded around, startled. I walked out of the workshop, eyebrow raised, and froze when I saw what was tied to the dead owl's leg. A pale bone flute carved with a blood wolf insignia. Your Highness, what is that? Victor asked, sensing the mood shift, nervous. I didn't answer right away. I picked up the bloody bone flute, voice going dangerously calm. Seems like the real boss of this wasteland is getting impatient. Wait, that's not just blood wolf. There's hidden gold thread grass etching on the edge, Victor said, all the color draining from his face the second he recognized it. He gasped, voice trembling with genuine fear. Your Highness, that's not a regular bandit chief's marker. That's the Wasteland Hound Pact's highest rank guest envoy token. Rumor says the Pact recently paid a fortune to recruit a mysterious supernatural fighter codenamed Jade Wolf. That's a peak tier, one supernatural knight. Around Blackstone Ridge, even regular armies. Avoid messing with monsters at that level. A tier, one supernatural knight. I rolled the bone flute between my fingers, no fear in my eyes at all, just sharp curiosity. That's strong, huh? Your Highness, that's a difference in life category, Victor explained urgently, clearly trying to make this risk-blind prince understand the scale of the threat. Supernatural fighters rank 1 through 9, getting exponentially stronger as they climb. Beyond rank 9 is epic and legendary territory, beyond what most mortals ever encounter. Even tier 1 fighters who've condensed actual combat aura become basically immune to ordinary swords and blades. Your repeating crossbows are amazing against regular bandits, but against a supernatural fighter's aura shield? Useless. Worse, he's bringing heavy cavalry. Our cement wall isn't even fully dry yet. It won't survive hundreds of armored horses charging it. Right as he finished, dingling, dingling, a bright, almost playful chime of silver bells echoed from deep in the storm to the west. No army noise, no galloping hooves, just that eerie bell sound, riding alongside a suffocating wave of pressure that crashed into the town like something physical. Nails on the workshop table actually vibrated and bounced from the sheer force in the air. Enemy approaching. Hans's voice cracked from the watchtower. Just one person. But what this pressure? Total silence fell over the whole town. Refugees who'd just gotten a hot meal and a hopeful future froze mid-task, staring at the not fully dried cement wall with an invisible hand squeezing their throats. I tore off my cloak, drew my sword, and walked toward the west wall. Elia and Victor right behind me. When I got up on the 3-meter wall, over 100 militiamen were lying flat, crossbows shaking in their hands, teeth chattering loud enough to hear. Through the blinding snow, everyone finally saw what was causing all this panic. Not some hulking green-faced monster, just a girl, walking alone through the apocalypse. Wild red hair braided into striking, exotic dreads, little silver bells chiming at the tips. In weather hitting -30 degrees, she wore nothing but a skin-tight, barely there fur armor that showed off every curve. Sun-kissed skin exposed to the storm without a single shiver, a tiny waist, and long, powerful legs built for combat. The real showstopper. The massive serrated crimson cleaver slung over her shoulder, bigger than her entire body, looking like it was personally hungry for blood. This was Aruna, favorite daughter of the Steppes Grand Khan. Right now she was strolling toward New Snowfall Town under her fake identity, Jade Wolf, looking the place over with mild curiosity. Why the hell is SHE here? I swallowed hard. In the game, fighters like her were basically unbeatable early on. But why is she showing up this early? So you're the disgraced reject prince, huh? Not bad looking, way better than the stinky brutes in the Hound Pact, Aruna said, stopping 50 paces from the wall, casually jamming her massive cleaver into the frozen snow. She stretched, lazy and arrogant. Heard you built some heat-generating circle and wiped out a few hundred Bloodhand losers. Got bored at camp. Figured I'd come check out this wasteland's new toy. Pretty cozy setup you've got. I like it. I'm taking it. She grinned, flashing one cute, lethal little fawn. Be smart and open the gate. Hand over your fun stuff. I'm in a good mood. Might even keep you as my bed warmer. The malicious faces went stone cold. Which? How dare you insult His Highness? Fire, Hans screamed, and 50 crossbows roared at once. Clack, clack, clack. THWP, THWP, THWP. 500 bolts shredded the storm, an unstoppable metal blizzard that had just erased 300 bloodhand bandits minutes ago. The militia's entire sense of confidence. Heading straight for this girl. Ugh. Hiding on a wall sniping is so boring. Aruna yawned, not even bothering to draw her cleaver. She just stomped her foot. A massive wave of golden red energy erupted from her body. It hardened into a thin, 3-inch shield hugging her skin. A wolf howl echo ripple through the air as her tear. One peak combat aura fully unleashed. Clink, clank, clink. The bolts that had pierced wood and leather like paper hit her aura and just shattered, splintered, disintegrated into dust. Aruna stood there, hand on hip, completely untouched, bolts piling up harmlessly at her feet. That's not possible. Militiamen froze mid-reload, staring at their once unstoppable miracle weapon getting reduced to toothpicks by a thin golden mist. Is this what supernatural means? Victor whispered beside me, face pale, nails digging into his palms. Against true power, mortal numbers and cleverness are just bubbles waiting to pop. Boring. Since you won't come out, I'll let myself in, Aruna said, yanking her cleaver from the snow. The ground exploded under her feet, and she teleported. Basically, straight to the front gate. Open, she barked, golden aura flooding into her blade, swinging down at our newly repaired oak gate with thunderous force. Right at that critical moment, a silver flash tore through the storm. Elia had already leapt off the wall, body twisting gracefully through the air, maid skirts snapping in the wind. You suicidal little bug, stay away from His Highness's gate. Her eyes blazed with murder, chain whipping out like a striking snake, hammer rising to meet that overpowered cleaver head-on. Boom. The shockwave between them blasted every bit of snow off the ground around the impact point. Huh. Aruna gasped in midair, genuinely startled. A force rivaling her own surged up through her blade. Stopped my swing with raw physical strength alone? Interesting. Very interesting. Aruna's eyes lit up with predatory delight. But Elia was in trouble. Raw strength alone wasn't enough against concentrated, destructive combat aura. The energy ran up the chain like a branding iron. Her hands burned black, knuckles split open from the recoil, blood dripping down her wrist. She grunted, flew backward, and slammed into the gate hard enough to shake it. Elia, I shouted, alarmed. Everyone held their breath. Their unstoppable death maid just got knocked back? You hit hard, little maid. Aruna landed gracefully, cleaver back over her shoulder, smug. Shame raw strength without combat aura can actually hurt me. Once I bust this gate open, you're getting dragged home as my punching bag. Elia stood up from the slush, gritting her teeth, staring at her own burned hands. Her red eyes started drowning in something darker, a presence far beyond tear, one trying to claw through a seal deep in her soul. I'll kill you, tear you to pieces, she muttered, mind teetering right on the edge of total collapse. Breaking that seal would let her one-shot this girl easy, but it had likely cost her everything left of her sanity. Even she lost. Victor closed his eyes, exhaling in defeat. The militia's last shred of resolve evaporated completely. Mortals were still mortals, after all. But just as Elia was about to lose herself completely, just as everyone hit rock bottom, I let out a cold, dismissive laugh from the wall. Elia, come back. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority, enough to yank her back from the edge. Your Highness, she looked up at me, full of hurt pride and frustration. You did great, I said. Come back now. I looked down at the proud girl on the ground with her oversized cleaver, completely unimpressed by her little aura light show. Tier, 1 peak supernatural night. Quite a performance. Open the gate. Let her in. Open the gate. Let her in. My calm voice landed like a thunderclap on everyone around me. Dead silence on the wall. The militia stared at me like I'd lost my mind from the cold. Hans's sword hand was shaking. Victor straight up forgot his noble manners and grabbed my arm. Your Highness, what did you just say? He hissed, panicked. She's a tier 1 peak monster. That gate is our last barrier. Open it, and let her into a crowd, and she'll harvest everyone like wheat. Please reconsider. He's right. Don't open it. The militia begged, terrified eyes on the red-haired girl with the cleaver. I just gave Victor a flat, cold look. Nobody questions my orders in my own territory. My voice carried zero room for argument. Hans, open the gate. Anyone hesitating gets hanged on the spot. Hans flinched, gritted his teeth. Why, yes, sir. Heavy footsteps echoed below. With a grinding screech, the freshly repaired, still blood-stained oak gate slowly swung open. Outside, Aruna, mid-wind-up for another strike, froze, staring at the open gate with genuine surprise. Huh. She planted her cleaver into the snow, tilted her head up at me, whistling. Bold move, second prince. Giving up already? Volunteering to be my servant, she had zero hesitation, zero fear of ambush. Power like hers made traps about as threatening as the snow underfoot. She strolled right through the gate like she owned the place. The moment she crossed into the heated zone, she melted instantly, eyes going half-lidded like a lazy lioness sunbathing. This magic circle feels amazing. Warmer than my FA. Warmer than the packed stone caves with a dozen fire pits going. Nice. I'm keeping this place. She sauntered into the town square, cleaver over her shoulder, militia scrambling backward like she was a walking plague, clearing a huge open space around her. Up on the platform, Elia had retreated back beside me, hands covered in red burns, but seemingly numb to the pain. Her red eyes were locked on Aruna's exposed, curvy figure, watching how that woman looked at me like she was sizing up a kept man or something. Her nails dug into her own wounds, blood dripping. Shameless little bug. Dressed like that, looking at His Highness like that. Elia's eyes flooded with crimson, possessiveness boiling over into something close to madness. His Highness belongs only to Elia. I want to gouge her eyes out, skin her alive, and turn her into a rug His Highness can step on forever. I noticed how unstable she was getting and grabbed her injured hand. Don't be jealous. She's just a high-tier muscle that wandered into our trap. Go get patched up by Anna before this scars, I said quietly, just for her. My warm grip instantly calmed her down, the murderous psycho settling back into an obedient cat. Once Elia was handled, I turned back to Aruna. As a guy who'd cleared this game more times than I could count, I knew exactly who I was dealing with. Aruna, favorite daughter of the Step Khan's Golden Tent Court. One of the early game's ceiling tier fighters in the original game. Stubborn, violent, but underneath it all, pure step directness, almost unbelievably naive about certain things. And the real kicker, this girl is a hopeless, world-class foodie. If this came down to swords, we'd lose a lot of people today. But since I knew her weakness, I didn't need swords at all. You're Jade Wolf, right? I said casually, leaning on the wall like greeting a familiar neighbor. That's right. Now that you know my name, hand over that heating magic circle. She tapped her cleaver against her shoulder. Oh, and your silver-haired maid too. That hit she landed on me still tingles. I'm taking her home to train properly. You want my maid? I laughed, dripping with mockery. Then I dropped my voice low, quiet enough only a supernatural fighter's ears could catch. Aruna, if your father back in the Golden Tent Court found out his favorite daughter ran off without a word to play bandit with a trash gang like the Hound Pact, think he'd just be mad enough to drag you home by the ear, or would he send 10,000 royal guards to flatten this entire region? Boom. That quiet, completely unmagical sentence hit her like an actual lightning bolt. Clang. Her 100-pound cleaver dropped straight out of her hand, slamming into the mud. All that lazy, unbeatable swagger evaporated instantly, replaced with pure, naked shock, like she'd been caught completely undressed. A wave of real killing intent, backed by her golden aura flaring back up, locked onto me. How do you know my real name? Her voice cracked, panicked like a tiger with its tail stepped on. Did you investigate me? No way. I fooled even the high priestess when I snuck out. You're a reject prince. How could you possibly know? I hid my identity perfectly. In my head, the system was going absolutely berserk. Ding. Detected tier, 1 peak supernatural knight. Aruna, experiencing extreme shock. Mental defenses severely compromised. Emotion points pouring in, 10,000. Ding. Target experiencing extreme guilt and fear. 15,000. Listening to my balance explode, my smirk got wider. Doesn't matter how I know, I said, not backing down an inch under her supernatural pressure, voice carrying that. I know everything, energy. I know a lot more than you'd guess. For instance, I also know the real reason you wandered alone all the way out here wasn't just boredom. It's because the Hound Pack's idea of cooking is boiled meat in plain water, and your taste buds are basically starving, aren't they? Direct hit. Aruna's face went red with fury, jabbing a finger at me. Why you're talking nonsense? I am not here because I'm craving food. Rigama. I cut her off, snapping my fingers. Go to the workshop, grab that cast iron split pot Tor poured the other day. Bring a hot coal brazier out to the square too. While he scrambled, I dipped into my system. Balance, 81,000 points. System, unlock the lifestyle and seasoning category. Buy 1 premium beef tallow spicy hot pot base and 2 plates of premium snowflake monster meat. Ding. Purchase successful. 500 points deducted. Items stored in pocket dimension. In a world where even salt is expensive and spices are basically noble exclusive luxury items, authentic Sichuan beef tallow hot pot is essentially a civilization-ending weapon against people stuck eating plain boiled meat. I walked down off the wall toward a completely stunned Aruna, looking at her exactly like a fisherman eyeing a fat fish about to bite. Guests are guests. Put the cleaver away, Aruna. Let me treat you to a real meal. A few militiamen nervously set up a table and brazier in the snow. A heavy, S-divided double pot got placed over the coals. Hidden by my cloak, I pulled out everything I'd just bought. Honestly, I made this pot just to enjoy some snow watching tonight, I said, pouring water in, dropping a glowing red block of fragrant solid base into the right side, and white broth powder into the left. Since you're here, allow me to treat the pearl of the steppe too. That's something you have never, ever tasted in your entire life. Hot pot. Hot pot. Aruna stared at the weird split pot with both broths starting to bubble. Left side, milky white bone broth. Right side, angry red oil, packed with dried chilies and Sichuan peppercorns. As the water heated up, that premium beef tallow base melted completely, and a nuclear-grade aroma of rich tallow, numbing spice, and aggressive chili exploded across the entire square. Gulp. The militia started swallowing audibly, one after another. These guys could barely afford black bread on a good day. They'd never smelled anything like industrial-grade refined spice in their lives. Even Victor, who'd attended actual capital banquets, caught himself drooling, eyes locked on the pot. Aruna's mouth went bone dry. As a princess of the Golden Tent Court, she'd eaten plenty of roasted whole lamb and stewed beef, but steppe cooking was crude, barely any seasoning at all. And her recent diet of hound-packed jerky had basically destroyed her taste buds out of boredom. This smell hit her like a bomb. What? What sorcery, I asked this? Such an aggressive smell. It's stinging my eyes red. But why does it smell so good? She inched closer, unconsciously licking her chapped lips, staring at the bubbling red oil. That's just the smell? I smirked, holding out a plate of paper-thin sliced meat with marbling like fine marble. This is snowflake premium beef. Only the tenderest cut from a top-grade monster. Watch. I picked up a slice with chopsticks and dunked it in the spicy broth. 7 dips up, 8 down. 15 seconds total. Smooth, practiced motions. The red meat turned a tantalizing pale gray, coated in glossy red oil and chili flecks. I rolled it through a garlic sesame oil bowl, then held it out to her. Try it. If you hate it, you can cut me down right here. Devil-tier temptation in my voice. I am not scared of poison. Aruna had been trying to stay dignified, but that smell had completely broken her resolve. She didn't even hesitate, just shoved the whole slice in her mouth. MMPH. Her pupils blew wide instantly. Spicy, pure, blazing fire dancing across her tongue. For someone who'd never tasted chili in her life, it hit like swallowing a fireball. Then came the numbing tingle of the peppercorns right behind it, weaving with the heat into something that lit up every taste bud at once. And the beef itself, only 15 seconds in the broth, but unbelievably tender, the juices and tallow exploding in her mouth. The garlic sesame dip cut through the heat, adding this whole other layer of savory depth. Ho, huh, ho. Her face went bright red, eyes welling up, bells on her hair braids shaking. But she couldn't stop. Gasping through the burn, she kept chewing and swallowing. What I asked this feeling? Like someone's fighting on my tongue. It hurts, but it's amazing. She grabbed the chopsticks right out of my hand, eyes glowing. More. Give me more of the red one. Forget royal dignity. She grabbed a huge clump of raw meat and dumped it straight into the spicy pot, fishing it out before it even fully cooked, stuffing it into her mouth, eyes watering, face pure bliss. Ding. Detected tier, 1 peak supernatural night. Aruna, experiencing extreme delight and shock. Target is being culturally annihilated by superior cuisine. Emotion points, 3,000, 5,000, 8,000. Listening to the points cascade in my head, I cross my arms, smiling like a shady businessman luring a kid into a van. Slow down, nobody's stealing it from you. Try the clear broth too, that one's best for sipping. I personally ladled her a bowl of bone broth. Gulp, gulp. She downed the whole bowl in one go, letting out a long, satisfied burp, rubbing her slightly bloated belly. The look in her eyes when she turned back to me had completely changed. All that earlier arrogance, gone, replaced with the kind of awe usually reserved for priceless treasures. "Hey, second prince," she said, wiping red oil off her chin, voice noticeably softer, dropping the royal. "This princess, speak. This pot thing. Do you get to eat this every day?" "Of course. As long as you stick around. System refreshes regularly anyway, and the price is honestly cheap. Spending some emotion points to buy the loyalty of an early-game boss-tier fighter? Absolute bargain. I went for the kill. Hot pot, barbecue, even better stuff than this, unlimited supply. And inside this warm bubble, you'll never have to freeze or starve like you did with the Hound Pact again. Plus, I won't restrict your freedom. Think of it as finding a long-term meal ticket out here in the wasteland. Deal? Unlimited." Her eyes lit up like stars. Forget the Hound Pact. Forget the tribute arrangement. No more bloody half-raw meat. No more stinking through filthy men. Compare that to unlimited spicy food and a heated room? Deal. She slammed her hand on the table, terrified I might somehow take it back. "I'm moving and starting today. Anyone tries to mess with your pot, I'll chop their head off and use it as a footstool for you." The militia watching this whole exchange had their jaws on the floor. The same unstoppable monster who'd one-shot the gate and beaten Elia in melee combat had just gotten fully recruited by a weird soup pot. Victor's entire worldview cracked. Looking at my back, his awe climbed to a whole new level. No bloodshed, total disaster averted, and I just recruited a tier 1 peak supernatural fighter as muscle. Your Highness's wisdom is as deep as the ocean, truly unfathomable. The only person not enjoying this scene at all stood right next to me. Crack. Elia had just crushed a small wooden board to splinters in her bare hand. Elia could heal herself with magic, so she skipped Anna entirely, found a corner, patched her own hands, and rushed back, only to find me feeding another girl dinner. Her nose stung. Tears threatened to spill. "I'm useless. It's all my fault." She stared at the red-haired woman loudly slurping hot pot at the table, killing intent so thick it could practically bleed. It wasn't just jealousy over food. That woman had screamed at me, threatened to make me her servant, and beat her in a fight earlier. The worst part of all. Unforgivable. That horrible bug. Meanwhile, Aruna finished her meal, satisfied and burping loudly, completely oblivious to any of this drama. "Hey, little prince, I'm stuffed. Need somewhere to sleep. Where's your bedroom?" "I'm taking it. Go find somewhere else." I laughed it off, not even slightly offended. The Hound Pact had 2 supernatural fighters. If Aruna was one of them, I just neutralized roughly half their combat strength with a single meal and a free bed. Bargain of the century. "Anna, coming, Your Highness. Show Jade Wolf to my room." "That's hers now." "Yes, sir." Anna bowed. "Miss Jade Wolf, please follow me. I'll take you to His Highness's quarters." Meanwhile, Elia's brain spiraled. "It's all my fault. His Highness has no bed now because of me. All my fault." Her chest heaved, magic pressure starting to leak off her, the air around us dropping a few degrees. She approached me slowly, voice shaking. "Your Highness, am I really that useless?" I lost to her. "I embarrassed you." System. Warning. Warning. Personal maid, Elia, experiencing extreme possessive Yandra crisis. Meter spiking 30% instantly. Current level, 85%. Target on the edge of total breakdown. I caught the alarm in my head and frowned slightly. Her jealousy threshold is already basically 0, and this is the first woman who's ever beaten her physically. Bad combo. I turned and looked straight into her bloodshot eyes. No explanation. No comfort speech. Instead, I just pulled her into my arms. "Let me see your hands." I took her small, soft hands in mine, gently uncurling her fingers one by one, checking the burns underneath. "Good. No lasting marks. It's fine that you couldn't beat her today. Your potential's far bigger than you realize." Because, technically, you're a sealed witch. Once that seal breaks, there are maybe a handful of beings in this entire world who could actually match you. She just doesn't know it yet, and I'm not telling her early. Elia's cheeks flushed bright red. The whole square was watching this, me cradling her like a treasured kid in public. Ding. Yandra meter crashing. Elia feeling shy. His Highness and Lady Elia really do have something special, old John whispered to the crowd, fully invested at this point. Does Sister Anna stand a chance? Someone asked. Old Rigama shook his head. I've watched these two grow up since they were small, their bond's solid as rock. Anna's chances are basically nil, he sighed. Honestly, more importantly, I'm dying to know what that hot pot actually tastes like. Aren't you all? Victor, Hans, and every militiaman within smelling distance had already started drooling. Your Highness, this might be improper of me to ask, but could we possibly try a taste of whatever that pot is? Victor said, dropping all pretense of noble restraint, edging closer to the steam. Oh my God. The smell hit him, and his eyes practically rolled back. That smells incredible. Old Rigama, lifelong food connoisseur, had tasted everything the capital had to offer. Never anything like this. Your Highness, I'm starving just looking at it. Please give the order. Yeah. Your Highness. Your Highness. Everyone stared at me with pleading eyes. These people had clearly never tasted anything like this in their lives, especially not in the middle of winter. One pot like this was basically a religious experience for them. Thanks for waiting, everyone, I called out. Come on in. We're sharing this. Don't just stand there staring. Line up and grab some bowls and chopsticks. People had watched me feed Aruna with chopsticks, but had zero idea how to actually use them. Your Highness, how does this thing work? They're called chopsticks, just 2 sticks. Harder to use than my sword. You just haven't practiced. Watch me. Pinch with your fingertips, grab the meat, dunk it in the broth. Your Highness, I think I got it. The hot pot feast went on for over an hour in the town square. By the time the militia had used every last scrap of black bread to mop up the broth from both pots, the great taste test finally wrapped up. Night fell deeper. Full and happy, everyone wandered back to their makeshift stone and wood shelters. Still rough conditions, sure, but with the heated dome protecting them, despair had completely disappeared from their faces, replaced with genuine excitement for tomorrow's work. I stood alone in the empty square, watching the coals die down, breathing out a cloud of white air. Your Highness, quiet, nervous footsteps approached from behind. Anna walked up, ledger clutched to her chest, head bowed, a little anxious. Your Highness, the stone houses are only half built. It's still too cold out there at night. She bit her lip, like she'd made up her mind about something, and spoke carefully. If you don't mind, I've already cleaned out my room and put fresh bedding in. It's the private chamber meant for senior clergy, right next to the geothermal core, very warm. Please, you and Lady Elia should rest there tonight. I blinked, surprised, and looked at her. What about you? I'm fine, really, Anna said with a weak smile, pointing toward the church hall corner. I can sleep on a floor pallet by the fire. I did it plenty during my novice years at the convent. You shouldn't have to suffer the cold, Your Highness. Beside me, Elia, who'd been low-key plotting Anna's death this whole conversation, visibly recalibrated. In her brain, any woman near her master is automatically a fox spirit trying to steal him, must be eliminated. But this? Anna willingly offering up her own warm bed, even thinking of where Elia herself would sleep. Choosing a freezing hall floor instead? Huh, this little priestess isn't like that loud red-haired woman. She knows her place. She gets that His Highness is the center of everything. The murderous intent quietly evaporated. Honestly, keeping a servant this well-behaved around might not be the worst thing. Your Highness, Elia tugged my sleeve gently. I looked down, genuinely shocked to see my usually bites everyone made acting reasonable for once. Since Sister Anna understands her place so well, we won't be rude about it. Elia's voice came out sweet and soft, even generous toward Anna, which was a first. But Your Highness, even with the heating, the hall still gets drafty at night. If she gets sick, we'll do the accounting and feed those filthy refugees tomorrow. She tilted her head. Why not just let her stay in the room too? As long as she sleeps in the corner farthest from the bed and doesn't disturb you. What's the harm? I blinked, mildly impressed. Did the sun rise in the west today? My murder maid, advocating for someone else? Really? Lady Elia, you're so kind. Anna was genuinely touched, knowing exactly how terrifying this maid's reputation actually was. Her eyes went a little misty. "I swear I won't make a single sound that disturbs you. Your Highness," she bowed repeatedly. "All right, settled then. Apologies for the inconvenience, Anna. Looks like the three of us are sharing tonight," I said, accepting the arrangement without complaint. The clergy room wasn't as nice as the priest's old chamber, but it was decent. A single wooden bed with thick fur bedding, a desk, a small heating stove. I obviously took the only comfortable bed. "Good night, Your Highness." "Good night, Lady Elia." Anna, sensibly, built a simple pallet from old sheepskins in the corner furthest from the bed. After an exhausting day of inventory, bandit attacks, and general chaos, her body gave out fast, even breathing within minutes, dead asleep. Elia laid a blanket on the floor beside my bed, standard position for a personal maid. The room went completely quiet. I closed my eyes, soaking in the geothermal warmth, finally feeling the tension from the last few days drain out of me. Then, a faint rustle of fabric near the bed. The edge of my fur blanket lifted slightly. A cold draft and a girl's familiar perfume slipped under the covers. In the dark, two glowing red eyes crept closer. Elia, perfectly silent, climbed straight into my bed. Across the room, Anna's slow, even breathing was clearly audible. The fact that someone else was literally sleeping in the same room? Instead of scaring Elia off, it acted like a built-in aphrodisiac for her warped possessiveness. So what if that woman's in the same room? She's stuck on a cold floor while I get to lie right next to His Highness, feeling his actual body heat. That sense of forbidden thrill made her breath quicken. She carefully propped herself up, basically straddling me, watching my sleeping face by the dim firelight. "Your Highness, you belong only to Elia." Unable to resist anymore, she leaned down and bit my collarbone. Gentle, but deliberate, marking her territory. "Sneaking around playing vampire in the middle of the night?" I said, voice low and lazy. She froze, head snapping up. I was wide awake, staring at her with amused exasperation. "Eep," she started to yelp, but I clamped a hand over her mouth before any real sound escaped. She whipped her head toward Anna's corner, terrified. Anna just rolled over, smacked her lips once, completely undisturbed. Crisis averted. Elia exhaled in relief, then turned back to me and went bright red under my teasing stare. "Now you're worried about waking people up?" I pulled her down onto my chest, wrapping an arm around her tiny waist. "Your Highness, you weren't asleep," she whispered against my chest, voice syrupy with guilty sweetness. "Elia just thought the floor was cold and wanted to check if you were sleeping well." "Sure you did." I trailed my hand down her hair, stopping at her waist, giving it a light squeeze. "MMH, that tickles," she gasped quietly, biting her lip, eyes flickering with that familiar unhinged delight. She leaned in close, voice barely audible. "Shoo, Sister Anna's right there. Keep your voice down. If she wakes up and sees you doing this to Elia in bed, how will you keep your dignity as a lord in front of her?" Hearing that wildly manipulative, weirdly thrilling little dig, something dangerous flickered in my eyes. This girl literally snuck in here herself and was now playing victim, using Anna's presence to add spice. "Bold of you to crawl into your master's bed uninvited." I flipped us, reversing positions in one motion, pinning her beneath me. She looked up with that classic, pretend resistance, actually thrilled, expression, eyes glassy. I leaned down and kissed her mid-sentence. I'll leave what happened next mostly to imagination. Let's just say the room got considerably warmer, and Elia spent the rest of it biting down hard on my shoulder, trying not to make a sound, terrified of waking Anna up. Then, right at the worst possible moment, I rolled back over. "If you're that scared of getting caught, go back to sleep properly." And no matter how much she tried to provoke me after that, I just didn't engage. Wait, what? Next morning, sunlight through the window woke me up feeling great. I rolled over. The spot beside me empty, just a few strands of silver hair and a faint trace of her perfume left behind. "Your Highness, you're awake." Anna stood by the bed, fully dressed, holding a steaming basin of water, completely oblivious to whatever covert warfare had happened in that bed last night. "Yeah, thanks." I got up, washed up quickly, stepped outside, cold morning air hitting me, instantly sharpening my focus. Elia stood waiting with a steaming bowl of porridge, cheeks pink, giving me a perfect little curtsy. "Your Highness, your breakfast." Set it down. Go get Victor, Tor, and Wood. Have them meet me in the square. As nice as all that warmth and comfort was, this wasteland doesn't forgive weakness. The Hound Pack's revenge could come any day. I needed to accelerate hard. Yesterday I taught them how to build crossbows. I looked at my core team gathering around me, smirking with confidence. Today, I teach you how to train an actual army out of this frozen wasteland.